Chapter 562 Tracked. The pack leader glanced at the mutant core in Lu Ye's hand, a hint of human-like expression flickering in its eyes. Then it slightly lowered its head as if agreeing. Lu Ye felt amazed that he had actually made a deal with a group of mutant beasts. Even though the details of the transaction and the specific price was vague and unclear, the fact that the pack leader agreed meant he could now collect some mutant cores in return from them. It also saved him the trouble of finding targets to practice on, so it was a good thing. He immediately sat cross-legged on the steps of his wooden cabin and took out the materials he had bought from the Vault of Providence, arranging them in a row in front of himself. Just as he had done before, he displayed the different effects of the 3 glyphs in front of the pack leader. "Remember, if there's a glyph you need, just choose it and I will tattoo the glyph for you," Lu Ye instructed the wolf mutant. The pack leader turned around, tilting its head. Among the wolf pack, a giant wolf immediately stepped forward and stood in front of Lu Ye. The pack leader raised its paw and tapped on the golden bottle symbolizing glyph, sharp edge. Understood. Lu Ye reached out and grabbed the maw of the wolf mutant in front of him, then took out a needle and began the process. In just a short while, a sharp-edged tattoo took shape, leaving a golden arrowhead mark on the mouth of the wolf mutant. The wolf mutant activated its spirit essence and bared its fangs. The sharp fangs were immediately covered in a faint glow, turning even sharper. Though Lu Ye had already witnessed Sharp Edge's power as displayed by his companions in previous fights, seeing how this power was born firsthand felt completely different. Lu Ye clearly saw a hint of surprise in the eyes of the pack leader. Even the quiet wolf pack became restless, their gazes toward Lu Ye becoming heated. This had never happened before. There were over 100 wolf mutants in this wolf pack, and they usually paid little attention to anyone that was not Wuxia. They basically acted as if they didn't exist in the arcane glade. But now, upon realizing that Lu Ye possessed the power to make them stronger, their perception of him undoubtedly underwent some subtle changes. Moreover, this increase in strength came effortlessly without any cost. This made the wolf pack value Lu Ye even more. Another wolf mutant approached under the pack leader's signal, who once again tapped the golden bottle symbolizing glyph, sharp edge. After a short rest, Lu Ye began the next tattoo. The actual time he spent on tattooing was not long, a few dozen breaths at most, but the mental drain he sustained during that short time was immense. With each tattoo made, Lu Ye's technique also became more proficient. While he was busy outside the Grand Wild's peak, 3 streams of light traveled together, moving swiftly through the air. From the fluctuations of their spiritual power alone, it was clear that the 3 of them were in the 9th Order Cloud River realm. And all 3 of them were 9th Order Cloud River realm cultivators whom Lu Ye had handled before. The black-clad figure in the middle was Tan Sheng of the New Moon sect. On his left was Wei Kei from the Clouded Sun clan, and on his right was Xiao Liang of the Raving Bladesmen. Compared to his previous state in the Carnage Coliseum, Tan Sheng's aura at the moment was undoubtedly somewhat violent. His eyes were bloodshot and he had become thinner all around. The New Moon sect's outpost in the Spirit Creek battlefield had been conquered and over 50 of their disciples were either killed or injured. The losses were devastating. When Tan Sheng received this news in the Cloud River battlefield, he almost fainted out of anger. It was also at that time that he made a vow to himself to kill Yi Yi and avenge his fallen junior disciples. He was on the verge of advancing into the real lake realm, and he had also gained some benefits in the Carnage Coliseum that could allow him to advance and leave the Cloud River battlefield at any time if he wanted to. But in order to kill Lu Yi, he forcibly delayed his advancement. What qualifications did he have to advance into the real lake realm if he hadn't even settled this deep hatred and enmity? He admitted that he was the one who orchestrated what happened in the Carnage Coliseum, but it was no reason for Yi Yi to target the sect behind him. A matter in the Cloud River realm was brought to the Spirit Creek battlefield, and after suffering such substantial losses, the New Moon sect was powerless to counterattack. Yi Yi was nothing short of a beast. So no matter what, he had to kill Yi Yi on the Cloud River battlefield. Only then could he ascend into the real lake realm with peace of mind. Wei Kei had the same reasons as Tan Sheng, but compared to the New Moon sect, his Clouded Sun clan suffered fewer casualties. Only their outpost was broken into and they suffered a significant loss of contribution points. Wei Kei didn't have the same intense hatred that Tan Sheng had. He was more concerned about the substantial reward he would receive for killing Lu Yi. After Lu Ye's second robbery of the Thousand Demon Ridge's major sects and clans in the Spirit Creek battlefield, his bounty had increased significantly. As for Xiao Liang, he did not come for Lu Yi but to find Li Baxian instead. For Xiao Liang, Yan Xing was like both a brother and a father figure to him, and such a person was killed by Li Baxian. Since learning that Li Baxin had entered the Cloud River battlefield, he had been searching for his whereabouts. Unfortunately, the Cloud River battlefield was too vast, and finding one person in such a place was like finding a needle in a haystack. However, Lu Yi and Li Baxin had a close relationship. If they could capture Lu Yi, Li Baxin would definitely not stand idly by. This was part of the reason why he attacked Lu Yi in the Carnage Coliseum back then. The convergence of these three individuals in such a vast battlefield was naturally no coincidence but a hunt on Lu Yi led by Tan Sheng. Wei Kei and Xiao Yang were both invited here by him. They didn't invite more people since the three of them, who were in the Ninth Order, was more than enough to deal with Yi. So what if they got more people like last time? He still managed to escape from them. Moreover, the main reason he was able to escape last time was thanks to the Golden Body token. With that thing protecting him, no one could break through his defenses, but there was no way that Yi could possess another one of them. So, as long as they could find his whereabouts, they could definitely kill him. During their flight, Wei Kei said, "Brother Tan, can we be sure that Yi entered the Grand Wild's Peak?" Tan Sheng remained silent and took out a compass-like object from his clothes. He lowered his head to examine it and said, "I'm sure." The compass looked similar to a tracking disc, but its actual effectiveness was far inferior. A tracking disc could clearly indicate the location of the target and provide a very specific direction. The closer the distance, the stronger the response on the tracking disc. However, the compass spirit artifact in Tan Sheng's hand couldn't do that. It could only point one in a general direction. Strictly speaking, this thing was like a severely limited version of a tracking disc. Even so, this object was extremely valuable and was hard to find throughout the entirety of Jiuzhou. It was acquired at a great cost by the New Moon sect, who purchased it from the Divine Trade Association before having it delivered to Tan Sheng in the Cloud River battlefield by one of the disciples. It was obtained solely for the purpose of tracking Lu Ye's whereabouts so that they could get revenge for the destruction of their sect's outpost as well as the killing of their disciples. So, even though it was a severely limited version of a tracking disc, it was no problem for it to point out a general direction for them. Following the guidance of this compass, the three of them hurried towards the Grand Wild's Peak. If Yi is only in the Third Order, then even if he received the reward from the roster of Carnage, and even if he has reached the Fourth Order now, it wouldn't be wise for him to enter the Grand Wild's Peak. Why would he go there? Experience cultivation. There has to be reasons, Tan Sheng casually replied. And don't forget, the reward for ranking first on the roster of Carnage includes a Primus-level Wisp of Sanctification. Wei Kei's eyes lit up at that. Brother Tan means, Tan Sheng scoffed. The value of a Primus-level Arcane Glade is extraordinary. Even if Yi obtains a Primus-level Wisp of Sanctification, he wouldn't dare to settle down arbitrarily. He has to find an inconspicuous area to settle the Wisp of Sanctification, and Grand Wild's Peak is undoubtedly a good choice. Although it is very dangerous there, as long as he is lucky, he may find a suitable place to reduce the risk of the Arcane Glade being discovered by others. Wei Kei's eyes brightened. That's a good point. If Yi's goal in entering the Grand Wild's Peak was to settle a Wisp of Sanctification, then it made sense. In that case, if they succeeded this time, not only could they obtain a large bounty but also a Primus-level Wisp of Sanctification. However, compared to the reward they would get from Thousand Demon Ridge, the temptation of a Primus-level Wisp of Sanctification seemed pale in comparison. Nevertheless, it would still be an extra gain. Also, Brother Xia. If things are as I suspect, then Li Baxin might be with Lu Yi. Tan Sheng made another astonishing statement. Xiao Yang's eyes, who had been silent all this while, suddenly turned sharper. How so? Currently, the Crimson Blood sect only has a few cultivators in the Cloud River realm, so it's impossible for Yi to monopolize a Primus-level Arcane Glade by himself. You should also be aware of Li Baxin's situation within the Devoted Ones. They have their own Arcane Glade, but it is unlikely that Li Baxin would get the opportunity to enter and cultivate there. If Yi has a Primus-level Arcane Glade, do you think he wouldn't invite Li Baxin to settle there with him? Xiao Yang's eyes became even brighter. If that's truly the case, this will be interesting. The sound of a blade suddenly rang out, and as the bright saber light flashed by, Xiao Yang had already rushed forward like an arrow released from a bow. A huge flying beast approached from the front, and when the two figures passed by each other, a rain of blood filled the sky. Xiao Yang had effortlessly cut down a powerful flying beast equivalent to the 7th Order Cloud River realm with a single slash. Wei Kei looked at him with envy. Even if they were both 9th Order Cloud River realm cultivators, Wei Kei couldn't compare to Xiao Yang at all. Even Tan Sheng surpassed him. The reason behind this was that Wei Kei's foundation in the Spirit Creek realm wasn't solid enough. Though all three of them had advanced into the Cloud River realm with 360 spirit points, only Tan Xing and Xiao Liang had their names on the roll of supremacy while Wei Kei had never left his mark on it. Xiao Liang was filled with fighting spirit, Tan Xing sought revenge, and Wei Kei had his eyes on the bounty. On this day the three Ninth Order cultivators followed the trail and ventured deep into the Grand Wild's peak. Inside the arcane glade, Lu Yi had tattooed nearly 30 wolf mutants before waving his hand at the pack leader in front of him. Come back tomorrow. He had depleted his mental energy and would need some rest in order to recover. Not all the tattoos he did were glyph, sharp edge. Some of them were glyph, protection and glyph, windwalk. The choice of the glyphs was up to the pack leader. Lu Yi had summarized a rule that those above the Fifth Order, not including those in the Fifth Order itself, would receive glyph, sharp edge. Below that they either got glyph, protection or glyph, windwalk. Glyph, protection was tattooed on their abdomen while glyph, windwalk was on their legs. The pack leader undoubtedly made these choices for the weaker members of the pack so that they could gain enough of a self-defense capability. Chapter 563 Master You? Every day, besides tattooing various glyphs for the wolf mutants, Lu Yi spent his time cultivating and reading books. Now that the spiritual qi in Arcane Glade had completely stabilized, the cultivation environment was excellent. Combined with the consumption of vital spirit pills, Lu Ye's cultivation efficiency reached an all-time high. Of course, even so, it couldn't compare with the speed of cultivating with an amulet. For cultivators, cultivating with amulets would always be the fastest way to improve one's cultivation. After 3 days, all the wolf mutants received different tattoos. During these 3 days, Lu Yi also obtained more than a dozen mutant cores from the wolf mutants. They were all brought back from their hunting trips and the quality of the mutant cores varied, but overall they were pretty good. After the last wolf mutant had its tattoo done, the entire wolf pack suddenly gathered together. The tall figure of the pack leader stood out among the pack. As it howled to the sky, the wolf pack echoed along. Then the pack leader turned around and while leading its pack, charged out of Ameliorate Valley with great momentum. Lu Yi was curious and wondered where the wolf pack was going. Recently, though the wolf pack did go out to hunt, they had never all left before. At most, a group of wolf mutants was sent out while the majority stayed in the valley. This was the first time they had all left like this. Moreover, from the momentum of their departure, it felt like they were a large army setting out on an expedition. Could they be going to seek revenge from some spirit beast? Lu Yi wondered to himself. The overall strength of the wolf pack was indeed powerful, but that didn't mean they were uncontested in the Grand Wild's peak. They might have suffered losses under some enemies in the past, which is why they relied on Zhu Jia's cultivation to enhance the strength of their pack. Now, with Lu Ye's tattoos, their overall strength could not have increased too much, but 20 to 30% was still possible, giving them the confidence to seek revenge. Of course, Lu Yi couldn't be sure if that truly were the case. By nightfall, the wolf pack still hadn't returned. Lu Yi roasted some snake meat and had a simple meal, then he got up and went to the Divine Opportunity column, pressing his hand on it and connecting to the Vault of Providence. Soon, he appeared in the small room dedicated to the commissioning of spirit artifact upgrades. The agreed-upon time with the woman had arrived. To his puzzlement, however, there were no signs of the woman even after he waited for more than 2 hours. Lu Yi wasn't worried that she would keep his inviolable out of greed. They had already signed the sacred pact, and if she failed to deliver the inviolable on time, she would undoubtedly suffer the punishment of the heavens. Even if she was a real lake or even divine ocean realm cultivator, she wouldn't be able to withstand it. So as long as she was alive, she would definitely deliver the inviolable. However, things would be troublesome if the opposite were true. The inviolable had been with Lu Yi for several years and he had formed a bond with it. Even if he were to replace it with an identical saber, it would undoubtedly affect the output of his power. It can't be that coincidental. Did she really die? Time passed little by little, and as the deadline approached, the space in front of Lu Yi suddenly distorted, and the woman's figure appeared. Lu Yi looked up and saw that her face was somewhat pale. There were even faint traces of dried blood at the corners of her mouth. It was clear that she had just fought with someone and was injured. When she saw Lu Yi waiting here, the woman let out a long sigh of relief. She placed the inviolable on the counter in front of her and continued using her old voice to deceive Lu Yi. I have accomplished your request. Please take a look. Lu Yi picked up the inviolable and casually weighed it in his hands. Indeed, it was twice as heavy as before and it felt just right in his hand. Upon drawing the saber, he found that the already dark blade appeared even deeper in color, but within the darkness was a sense of sharpness. His mind stirred as he examined the various enchantments on the blade. There were indeed 27 enchantments. All the requirements were met. As for how much the inviolable had increased in power, that would have to be tested in actual combat. However, since the inviolable was also upgraded from low grade to middle grade by the same person, there shouldn't be any problems with this upgrade. Thanks to their previous cooperation, Lu Yi had some confidence in the woman's craftsmanship. No problem. Lu Yi nodded affirmatively. As soon as he finished speaking, the sacred pact took effect, and with a slight warmth on the back of his hand, the agreed-upon amount of contribution points were deducted. The transaction was complete, and there was no need to linger any longer. Lu Yi wasn't interested in knowing how she had been injured, nor did he need to inquire about it in order to avoid exposing some of his own secrets. Just as he was about to leave, the woman suddenly called out to him. "Wait, young friend." Lu Yi looked up at her. "You're in the Cloud River realm, aren't you?" "I am." With the grade of the inviolable evident, it was only natural that the other party would be able to guess such a thing so easily. Young friend should still be planning to upgrade this blade to top grade in the future, right? Possibly. In that case, why not take my imprint? If you have any needs in the future, you can contact me directly without having to go through any trouble. This proposal was somewhat unexpected to Lu Yi, but judging by her expression, it seemed that she still wanted to profit from him. It was understandable. Anyway, he would still need to come here to commission someone if he wanted to further upgrade the saber in the future, and if he could entrust it to an acquaintance, it would save him some trouble. Sure. The woman then raised her hand and brushed it against her battlefield imprint. A glimmer of light drifted towards Lu Yi, who raised his hand, and the light landed on his own battlefield imprint located on the back of his hand. "What should I call you?" Lu Yi asked. "Just call me Master Yu," the woman replied. "But if you want to find this old woman, you'll have to leave the Cloud River battlefield first. You won't be able to contact me while you're inside." The woman's cultivation level was undoubtedly above the Cloud River realm, and her true body should be somewhere in Jianghu. Understood. Lu Yi nodded slightly. With a thought, his figure disappeared and he left the space. The woman was left frowning. He didn't even tell me his name. What an impolite youngster. After muttering to herself, she quickly left as well. She was injured and needed to heal as soon as possible. Inside the wooden cabin in the arcane glade, Lu Yi inspected the inviolable. He infused his spiritual power into it, and compared to before, it seemed to flow more smoothly. Over the course of this long period, small traces were left on the blade as Lu Yi fought with the saber. No matter how sturdy the inviolable saber was, it was inevitable that it would show some signs of wear and tear. However, after the upgrade, all these tiny marks had disappeared, and the entire saber seemed to have been reborn. Setting aside the woman's pretentious personality, her craftsmanship in the art of spirit artifact refinement was indeed impressive. In fact, if Lu Yi wanted to, he could also cultivate the way of artification. With his foundation as a glyph weaver, he should be able to progress twice as fast in that discipline. However, there was only so much a single person could do. In addition to being a glyph weaver, which was his main focus on cultivation, he also cultivated the way of wards and way of tattoos, so he had no more energy to spare. He took out a seed of the mystic fruit from his storage sphere in preparation to enter the Rift of Illusions to test out his saber in actual combat. As he immersed his mind into it, he quickly appeared in that unique small space, the surroundings of which he surveyed vigilantly at once. Since the incident when he was slashed by an unknown person in this place, Lu Yi had always been cautious whenever he used the seed of the mystic fruit to enter the Rift of Illusions. However, so much time had passed and he had not encountered that person again. Firstly, neither of them entered the Rift of Illusions for training that frequently. After all, each entry into the Rift of Illusions consumed a certain amount of contribution points. Secondly, this small space was only a transit point, and as long as they didn't enter simultaneously, they wouldn't meet each other. It was just a great coincidence that he had encountered another person here that time. After spending 100 contribution points, Lu Yi pushed open the large door and stepped into the Rift of Illusions before standing there with blade in hand. Mist rolled around him. Soon, a figure charged out from behind the curtain of mist. Before the other person arrived before him, telekinetic techniques had already been sent out in Lu Ye's direction. This time, the opponent he encountered in the Rift of Illusions was a cultivator, and judging from the momentum of their attack, they were also in the Fourth Order Cloud River realm, just like Lu Yi. The strength of the opponents in the Rift of Illusions was always linked to Lu Ye's own strength. If he entered with a cultivation in the Fourth Order Cloud River realm, then the opponent's strength would also be in the Fourth Order. The difficulty would gradually increase until he could no longer resist them and was eventually expelled. However, facing opponents at the same level was already a common occurrence for Lu Yi. He confronted the numerous beams of light that came at him, and the inviolable ignited with flames, blocking all of the incoming attacks before charging directly at the enemy. As the blade flashed past, and the enemy's figure disintegrated, the mist surged and this time two figures charged out. Brandishing his saber, a blade light cut through the air. Lu Ye's figure moved agilely within the Rift of Illusions, the inviolable burning with a dazzling flame as one enemy fell after another. After being upgraded to high grade, the inviolable undoubtedly had much greater destructive power, but correspondingly, the consumption of spiritual power became more intense on him. This was unavoidable. This was also the reason why cultivators of different realms could use different grades of spirit artifacts. If a cultivator in the Spirit Creek realm were given a high-grade spirit artifact, even if they could activate it, they wouldn't be able to sustain it for long before their spiritual power was completely drained. With Lu Ye's current cultivation, which was in the Fourth Order, he could barely handle the power drain of a high-grade spirit artifact. If he could raise his cultivation to the Fifth Order, it would be much easier to handle. He had been considering whether to replace the flying weapons in his weapon holder with high-grade spirit artifacts, but after this test he decided against it. It was not that he couldn't afford it, it just felt unnecessary. The primary method of killing for a combat cultivator was close-quarters combat, whereas the way of telekinesis was just an embellishment, providing a means of long-range combat to avoid the awkward situation of being attacked from afar without being able to fight back. However, compared to the telekinetic techniques of other combat cultivators, Lu Ye's telekinetic techniques were undoubtedly more lethal since he could enhance them with glyphs. Glyph, Windwalk made his telekinetic techniques faster, and Glyph, Sharp Edge made them more powerful, and this was something that most cultivators would struggle to compare with. After an hour, Lu Yi was expelled from the Rift of Illusions. He felt a slight tingling sensation in his mind, which quickly disappeared. This was undoubtedly a benefit of having a powerful divine soul. Chapter 564, Come Out and Die. Each day was spent reading or cultivating, then some time would occasionally be taken out in order to enter the Rift of Illusions to hone himself, familiarizing himself with the might of the inviolable after its upgrade. Life was peaceful. Such a life was highly coveted by many cultivators in the Cloud River realm. Having a stable cultivation environment meant not needing to travel around and face too many dangers, allowing for a smooth advancement in cultivation. Lu Yi was also content with such a life. Although he had been on the go since he started cultivating, he wouldn't refuse such a peaceful life if it weren't for his unavoidable circumstances. While cultivating in Arcane Glade couldn't compare to obtaining amulets, it had the advantage of stability. In terms of overall efficiency, it might even be faster than going around everywhere in search of amulets, especially since they weren't exactly things that one would come upon just because they set their minds on searching for it. It also depended on luck. On the third evening since the wolf pack disappeared, the sun had just set when Lu Yi, who was reading and cultivating, suddenly looked up and saw a dense group of figures outside the grand ward of the Arcane Glade. The wolf pack had returned. The imposing pack leader was covered in blood, and the other wolf mutants also had signs of injury, indicating that they had just experienced a great battle. However, what surprised Lu Yi was that the wolf pack had grown in size. Originally, this wolf pack consisted of just over 100 wolf mutants, but now they had returned with more than 200, including some young wolf cubs that obviously weren't fully grown. Under the leadership of the pack leader, the wolf pack stopped outside the grand ward and waited quietly. Lu Yi waved the ward flag and opened a gap in the ward. Only then did the wolf pack pour into the Arcane Glade and look for suitable places to rest while the injured wolf mutants silently licked their wounds. The pack leader led some wolf mutants straight to Lu Yi. Under its guidance, the wolf mutants approached and spat out mutant cores they kept in their mouths. Lu Yi had already obtained more than a dozen mutant cores from the wolf pack previously, and he had no idea what the wolf pack had gone out to do. Not only did the pack increase in size, they also brought back nearly 50 mutant cores. This was clearly the wolf pack's show of gratitude and also the reward for Lu Ye's tattoos. It was a great deal. The materials Lu Yi bought from the Vault of Providence cost only a little over 1,000 contribution points, but the value of these mutant cores was worth more than that. He could even get as much as 10,000 if he were to sell them off to the Vault of Providence. Since the wolf pack knew to show gratitude, Lu Yi naturally wouldn't be stingy either. He immediately spent some contribution points to buy some healing pills from the Vault of Providence and distributed them to the injured wolf mutants together with Yi. After all, the future safety of the arcane glade would depend on this wolf pack. The reason Lu Yi chose to establish the arcane glade in Ameliorate Valley was so that he could leverage the strength of the wolf pack for protection. If it weren't for this wolf pack, he would never have set the arcane glade here. Although this place was hidden, it was also quite risky. If a powerful spirit beast attacked, he and Li Baxin alone might not be able to withstand it. Many of the new wolf mutants were somewhat resistant to being approached by Lu Yi, but under the intimidation of the pack leader, they could only obediently take the healing pills. Spirit beasts were very tenacious. As long as their injuries weren't too severe and they weren't instantly killed, there was generally no harm to their lives. After 2 or 3 days, the wolf pack had mostly recovered. The pack leader led its newly arrived members to see Lu Yi and to enlist his help in tattooing glyphs for them. Lu Yi naturally wouldn't refuse, as improving the strength of the wolf pack also meant increasing the arcane glade's defenses. Meanwhile, 15 kilometers away from Ameliorate Valley, Tan Xing and his 2 companions were seated cross-legged in a cave recuperating. Even if all 3 of them were in the 9th order, they appeared somewhat disheveled at the moment. They had been searching for Lu Ye's whereabouts in the vicinity for days, but unfortunately, the compass they had was far less effective than a tracking disc. They could only roughly determine Lu Ye's location but were unable to pinpoint it accurately. During their search, they occasionally encountered powerful spirit beasts, which led them into fierce battles. Just 2 hours ago, the 3 of them had joined forces to kill a spirit beast that was on par with a 9th order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Though it wasn't without some gains, their main goal was still Lu Yi. No matter how many spirit beasts they killed, none of it meant anything if they couldn't find Lu Yi. Yi should be nearby. Let's rest for tonight and continue searching in the southeastern direction tomorrow, Tan Xing suggested. Neither Wei Kai nor Xiao Yang had any objections. Even though they hadn't found any trace of Lu Yi yet, they could surmise that Lu Yi hadn't left this area based on the clues they found. So, as long as they continued searching, they would eventually find him. We have already thoroughly searched within this 50-kilometer radius several times, but we still haven't found anything. Yi is proficient in wards, so if he really did set up his arcane glade here, he would have set up many grand wards as well. During tomorrow's search, we mustn't overlook anything remotely suspicious, Wei Kai added. Naturally it should be so, Tan Xing nodded. However, his teleportation ward is going to be troublesome for us. Even if we did find him, we might not be able to kill him if he has set up the ward in advance. Inside the Carnage Coliseum, Tan Xing had been pursuing Lu Ye's trail with the tracking disc, but his movements were unpredictable, sometimes appearing in front, sometimes behind, teleporting 1 to 200 kilometers in an instant. At that time, Tan Xing didn't know what was happening and even suspected that there was something wrong with the tracking disc. Until the Carnage Coliseum closed, he racked his mind and asked around for information. Finally, he arrived at the conjecture that Yi might be able to set up teleportation wards. That was why he could instantly teleport 1 to 200 kilometers at a time, making it impossible to chase him down. When he reached this conclusion, he was genuinely surprised, as teleportation wards were not something that ordinary ward mages could set up. Even a real Lake Realm ward cultivator would find it challenging to set up teleportation wards, let alone Lu Yi, who was only in the Cloud River Realm. However, apart from teleportation wards, there was no other way to explain the strange situations he encountered. After putting his heart together with Wei Kai and Xiao Yang and discussing this matter, he became even more certain about that conjecture. Because Wei Kai had also pursued Lu Yi before, and even though Lu Yi clearly entered a cave, he seemed to disappear without a trace when he went in to search. There were only remnants of a shattered ward on the ground, as if something had been destroyed. Later, the 3 of them carefully investigated the places where Lu Yi had appeared in the Carnage Coliseum and eventually found a teleportation ward that Lu Yi left behind, confirming their conjecture about his use of them. Xiao Yang said, "I asked some of the elders in the sect about teleportation wards. There's no need to worry too much. Even if Yi can set them up, the coverage range of the teleportation wards he can create with his cultivation level won't be too large, and they have to be able to echo with each other in order to work. With spirit beasts rampant in the Grand Wild's Peak, he definitely wouldn't dare to randomly set up the wards outside lest they be destroyed by passing spirit beasts. Instead of worrying about the teleportation wards, I'm more concerned about whether he has summoned the Divine Opportunity column in the Arcane Glade." As soon as that possibility was aired out, Tan Xing and Wei Kai fell silent. If it were anyone else, summoning the Divine Opportunity column might be unlikely as it was a costly endeavor, but for Yi, it was entirely possible. That guy was rich. He had recently obtained tens of millions of contribution points worth of resources from Thousand Demon Ridge, so definitely had a lot of contribution points at his disposal and could summon a Divine Opportunity column at any time. It was this exact method that he used to escape in the Carnage Coliseum before. Last time he had the Golden Body token protecting him so no one could stop him. If not for that, he wouldn't have been able to escape then. So, it shouldn't be a big problem, Tan Xing said, perhaps trying to reassure himself. After a pause he continued, even if he has already summoned a Divine Opportunity column and escaped realizing that the situation is unfavorable for him, at the very least, we can seize his arcane glade, and it wouldn't be a complete loss. In any case, let's first find his whereabouts. Even if he has summoned a Divine Opportunity column and we can't kill him this time, there will always be next time. Their conversation came to an end and they quietly recovered their strength. At dawn the next day, they set off again and continued their search in the southeastern direction. Moments later, in the sky above Ameliorate Valley, 3 streaks of light passed by, Tan Xing and his companions respectively. They scanned their surroundings, but due to the concealment ward's effects, all they saw was a beautifully scenic valley without anything particularly noteworthy. Of course, the main reason was that none of the 3 of them were proficient in the way of wards. Otherwise they may have been able to discern some clues. Just as they were about to pass by, Xiaoliang suddenly halted and focused his gaze downwards. In the previously empty valley below, a wolf-like spirit beast had appeared at some point in time. Judging from its appearance, it was a young wolf cub that had yet to fully grow up. Sensing Xiaoliang's unusual behavior, Tan Xing and Wei Kei also quickly stopped their movements. Xiaoliang? Tan Xing looked over in confusion. Xiaoliang remained silent, concentrating his vision as he continued to observe. At that moment, a distortion occurred in the empty space not far from the young wolf cub, causing a visible ripple. Following that, an imposing wolf mutant materialized out of thin air, walked up to the wolf cub and grabbed it by its neck. Then, ignoring the cub's struggles, it carried the cub away. Another ripple appeared, and the wolf mutant vanished again. A concealment ward. Tan Xing exclaimed, a hint of excitement appearing in his eyes. Both Xiaoliang and Wei Kei grew excited as well. Wei Kei said, "This concealment ward has to be Yi's doing, no doubt about it. This is where he set up his arcane glade." This truly was like wearing down iron shoes to find nothing, only to then chance upon it effortlessly. They had been searching for Lu Ye's whereabouts in the vicinity, but they had never been able to find him, yet they never expected that a fortuitous coincidence would allow them to discover the traces of a grand ward. Lu Yi himself had no idea that his ward had been exposed because of a playful young wolf cub. Mainly, he had no knowledge that Tan Xing and his companions had still been searching for his trail to begin with. Previously, when he was being tracked with the tracking disc, he could sense their presence to some extent when they got close, but this time he was completely oblivious to their presence. The severely limited version of the tracking disc was far inferior to the genuine one, but that also meant that Lu Yi couldn't sense it, so it had its pros and cons. After confirming the possibility that this was where Lu Yi was hiding, the 3 of them no longer hesitated. Xiaoliang drew his saber, Wei Kei's spell technique surged, and Tan Xing also brought out his own spirit artifact. The 3 Ninth Order Cloud River Realm experts simultaneously launched their attacks towards the valley below. Violent spell techniques surged and massive blade lights swept through the area. Tan Xing's angry roar echoed through the sky, "Yi, come out and meet your death." With his roar, a deafening boom resounded. At the outskirts of the arcane glade, a solid barrier suddenly materialized, ripples spreading across its surface as it blocked the incoming attack. Chapter 565. Before the formation was activated, they couldn't see much, but now that the 3 of them had activated the defensive formation, the situation in the valley below was exposed. A huge defensive formation covered half of the valley like an inverted bowl. The spirit energy flowing on the light curtain was condensed and didn't dissipate, showing the density of the world's spirit energy. If Tan Xing and the others had only suspected that this might be Lu Ye's hiding place, then after seeing this defensive formation, their certainty increased by at least 70 to 80%. The strength of a defensive formation was directly related to the world's spirit energy. The denser the world's spirit energy, the stronger the defensive formation. The formation in front of them was so vast, but it still had such astonishing strength, indicating that the world's spirit energy here was definitely at the level of a grade A spirit land. The reward for the first place on the hunting list was a grade A spring spirit. However, because of the other formations, the three of them could only see the light curtain of the defensive formation, but couldn't see the scene inside. If they could see clearly, the three of them wouldn't be so aggressive. Because of this, more than 200 alarmed wolves in the spirit land all looked up at the three in the air. Some of them even lowered their bodies slightly and growled threateningly. The wolves weren't the only ones alarmed by the great momentum. Li Baxin, Feng Yuechan, and Giant Armor flashed out of their wooden houses and looked up. Glancing at the three figures in the air, Li Baxin was slightly surprised. Why are they here? Li Baxin naturally knew these three people. Tan Sheng and Xiao Yang were both on the spirit stream list and had more or less interacted with Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan. Last time he fought with them in the hunting ground, and in the end he relied on the trap formation set up by Lu Yi in advance to escape. These three people appeared in the sky above the spirit land and attacked the formation. It was obvious that they didn't come with good intentions. Listening to their shouts, it seemed that they were specifically looking for their junior brother. Where's junior brother? Li Baxin didn't see Lu Ye's figure, but Yi ran out. Yi said, Lu Yi is honing his blade technique in the Mirage realm. At this time, Li Baxin was quite helpless. Lu Yi could enter the Mirage realm with the help of breath fruit cores. This was something he knew. Recently, he and Feng Yuechan had occasionally used breath fruit cores to enter the Mirage realm to hone their fighting skills. As such, he knew that if Lu Yi was inside the Mirage realm, he wouldn't be able to perceive the situation outside, so he could only wait until he exited it. But if things continued like this, the spirit array would definitely collapse. Without anyone controlling it, the power it could display was limited, and with Tan Sheng's group of 3 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators attacking together, it wouldn't be long before they could break the spirit array. Where's the jade pendant? Wade asked. I'll go find it, Easty leave. But the jade see, est. Li Baxin took it, poured his spiritual energy into it, and after familiarizing himself with it, began to mobilize the surrounding world energy to control the spirit array. In this situation, Li Baxin wasn't worried about Tan Sheng's group coming in. Although they weren't Tan Sheng's group's opponents, there were more than 300 monster wolves in the spirit land. If Tan Sheng's group really came in, they wouldn't have a good ending. However, before Lu Yi exited the Mirage realm, Yang Kai couldn't let Tan Sheng's group enter the spirit land. Otherwise, if a chaotic battle broke out, Lu Yi would be injured. So, the best way now was to stall for time and wait for Lu Yi to exit the Mirage realm. As soon as Yang Kai took control of the spirit array, Tan Sheng and the others immediately noticed. As a result, the power of the three's attacks became more and more fierce. Tan Sheng even shouted, Lu Yi, give up. Unless you can summon the Heaven's Fate Pillar again, this place will be your burial ground. As he spoke, he attacked wildly, causing ripples to appear on the spirit array's light curtain. There was no response from the spirit array, but the more it was like this, the more certain Tan Sheng and the others were that Lu Yi was inside. If it were someone else, they would have just stood up and explained the situation, but because Lu Yi was inside the spirit array, he didn't dare to show himself easily. Moreover, they had tracked Lu Ye's whereabouts to this point, and it just so happened that there was a grade A spirit land and a spirit array of such scale here. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? Spiritual energy surged violently, and the light screen flickered incessantly. Tan Sheng and the other two were secretly shocked. This protective array was truly powerful. Even with the three of them joining forces, they were still unable to break it. However, even if they didn't break the spirit array, it was still quite effective because the light curtain of the spirit array was obviously dimmer than before. At this rate, they would be able to break the spirit array sooner or later. At that time, they could directly attack the root of the problem. Attack together. Xiao Yang roared as he drew his saber. Who knew if Lu Yi would summon the Heaven's Fate Pillar, so the sooner they broke the spirit array the better. As his long saber fell, Wei Kei's spell followed closely behind. Tan Sheng attacked as well, and one attack after another landed on the same spot of the formation. The three of them worked together and their coordination was flawless. The light screen of the formation that was attacked flickered repeatedly. Inside the spirit land, the helpless look on Li Baxin's face grew stronger. Although he tried his best to maintain the operation of the spirit array, he wasn't a spirit array cultivator after all, and the spirit array didn't come from him, so there was a limit to what he could do. At most, he could mobilize more energy to maintain the spirit array's position. Thinking about it, he decided that he could only let these three reckless fellows in and let the monster wolf deal with them. Just as he was thinking this, Lu Ye's voice suddenly sounded in his ear. "What's going on?" Li Baxin turned his head and saw Lu Yi standing beside him, looking up at the sky and exclaiming, "Little junior brother, you're finally awake." Lu Yi also saw Tan Sheng's group of 3 baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at this moment and couldn't help showing a strange expression. How did these 3 find me? Moreover, the 3 of them actually found me together. His first thought was that the secret technique of the tracing plate was still in effect. But thinking about it carefully, it didn't make sense. Since he left the hunting ground and returned to the 9 regions, there were no traces of the secret technique planted on his body, so it didn't make sense for it to still be in effect after such a long time. But these 3 couldn't have found this place for no reason. Although he didn't know what method they used, it was obvious that they used a special spirit tool similar to the tracing plate. The enemy had found him and was attacking the spirit array he had set up, so this battle was naturally unavoidable. Lu Yi turned his head and saw that all the wolves were looking up at the sky. Many of the monster wolves had already been provoked and were baring their teeth on the spot. As if sensing Lu Ye's gaze, the head wolf somewhere in the wolf pack turned its head and looked at Lu Yi. The head wolf nodded slightly. Lu Yi made up his mind. He had trained his soldiers for 1,000 days to use them in a single moment. It was undoubtedly a wise decision to use the demon wolves as the strongest defensive force in the spiritual land. Although the wolf pack had initially stayed here because of the giant armor, Lu Yi and the wolf pack had become extremely harmonious over the past few days. Now that the enemy had come knocking on their door, the wolf pack would definitely not sit idly by. Taking the jade pendant of the spirit array from Li Baxin, Lu Yi poured his spiritual power into it and adjusted the power of the spirit array. He said, "Fourth senior brother, take senior sister Feng in giant armor to this position and wait." Saying so, he threw out a spirit array flag and it flew into the distance. The spirit array he had set up in the spiritual land was not just a defensive and concealment spirit array. The defensive power of the spiritual land itself was definitely not limited to the wolf pack. The power of the wolf pack could be borrowed, but he had never completely relied on it. Li Baxin nodded and immediately led Feng Yuechan in giant armor in the direction of the spirit array flag. After a short while, following Lu Ye's actions, the 3 of them concealed themselves. Yi went underground and waited for an opportunity to move, while Hupa jumped on Lu Ye's shoulder and waited. Lu Yi moved his spiritual power and the spirit array changed. At the same time, a light crack came from the sky, like a mirror being shattered. A gap was broken in the tight spirit array. The 3 figures entered in a line, accompanied by Tan Sheng's carefree laughter. "Lu Ye, your time of death has come." His laughter came to an abrupt stop as if someone had grabbed him by the neck. The smile on Tan Sheng's face suddenly stiffened. Beside him, Wei Kei and Xiao Liang were shocked. The 3 pairs of eyes stared at the 200 or so monster wolves below, their expressions gradually turning serious. Although they had seen traces of monster beasts entering and exiting this place before, and it was because of that scene that they were certain there was a spirit array covering this place, none of them had expected so many monster beasts to have gathered in this valley. Looking at the scale, it was a wolf pack. Lu Ye, whom they had yearned for day and night, was standing below, coexisting peacefully with the wolf pack. The monster wolves looked at them with eyes full of savagery. What was going on? Tan Xing and the other 2 were dumbfounded by the scene before them. They had thought that the biggest problem they would face after breaking through the defensive array would be Lu Yi escaping with the help of a teleportation array or using the Pillar of Heaven's fate to escape. But now, it seemed that the development of the situation was completely different from what they had expected. Lu Yi showed no signs of escaping, but the 3 of them had accidentally fallen into a trap. What kind of spirit array was this? This was simply a wolf's den. How could Lu Yi have such great ability to subdue such a wolf pack? Retreat. Xiao Liang was the first to react, immediately urging his body to retreat through the gap they had come in from. However, as Lu Yi waved the array flag in his hand, the protective array began to twist and change. In the blink of an eye, it had been replaced by a giant trapping array. The original opening had also disappeared without a trace. Xiao Liang slammed into the light curtain of the trapping array, unable to escape unless he had the ability to break the trapping array again. Lu Ye had the protection of such a pack of wolves, so he had nothing to fear. The reason why he didn't let them in immediately was to numb them. This was a well-prepared trap. Realizing this, Tan Sheng and the other 2's expressions turned ugly. Wei Kei suddenly spoke up, "Don't panic, the 2 of you. These monster wolves don't seem to have the ability to fly. As long as we don't fall, they can't do anything to us." Chapter 566. Tan Sheng and Xiao Yang's hearts calmed down a little. When they saw so many monster wolves just now, they were shocked and their minds were in a mess, so they didn't think about it. Now, it seemed that these monster wolves really didn't have the ability to fly. As such, the threat to them was naturally reduced. Even if they had a certain degree of anti-air ability, as long as the three of them maintained flight, they wouldn't be in too much danger. On the contrary, the three of them could rely on their nimble bodies and the foundation of Cloud River Realm cultivators to slowly nibble away at these monster wolves. Of course, their main goal was still Lui Yi. As long as they could kill Lui Yi, they could completely ignore the monster wolves. Just as they were thinking this, Lu Yi suddenly waved the array flag in his hand and softly uttered a word that made their hair stand on end. Sky restriction. As his voice fell, the array covering the spirit land suddenly changed. If it was more than a month ago, Lu Yi wouldn't have been able to set up a sky restriction array, but last time he obtained 4 spirit inscriptions from the talent tree. Moreover, all 4 spirit inscriptions were related to spirit arrays, and one of them was the sky restriction array. If he wanted the wolf pack to display enough power, the sky restriction array was undoubtedly necessary. When the array changed, Tan Sheng and the other 2 who were flying in the air suddenly felt an invisible mountain pressing down on them. Caught off guard, the 3 of them fell down, each of them baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, looking extremely miserable. Wolf howls rang out as many monster wolves opened their mouths and spat out light green wind blades, sweeping towards the 3 of them. Monster wolves really didn't have the ability to fly, but they did have a certain degree of anti-air ability. These wind blades that could be spat out from their mouths were a kind of innate demonic skill that they were born with. Not only monster wolves but most monster beasts also had this ability. Without this ability, they wouldn't have been able to survive in this dangerous Taimang Mountains. Of course, compared to their sharp claws and fangs, these wind blade-like attacks were much weaker and less agile. But they had the advantage of numbers. The dense wind blades flew towards Tan Sheng and the other 2, causing their bodies to flicker wildly. As expected of Cloud River Realm 9th Order cultivators, even if they suddenly encountered such an unforeseen event, they were still able to defend themselves. Although they were in a sorry state under the attack of so many wind blades, they were still able to defend themselves well. As the 3 of them continued to fall, the pressure on their bodies rapidly decreased. This was the case with the Forbidden Flight Array. Within the range of the array, the higher one flew, the greater the pressure. If one was on the ground, one would not feel any pressure at all. The 3 of them hurriedly stabilized themselves after reaching a height of 10 meters above the ground. At this height, the pressure from the Forbidden Flight Array was negligible. In the end, it was still because Lu Ye's attainments in the Tao of formations were insufficient. Otherwise, not to mention 30 feet, they could forget about flying even if they were only 30 feet. Even though they'd escaped the misfortune of falling down in a sorry state, the 3 of them didn't have the slightest trace of joy on their faces. Instead, they seemed even more solemn because numerous demon wolves had already surrounded them from all directions. As the wolf howls rose and fell, the demon wolves took the initiative to launch an attack. One after another, huge figures leaped up and pounced towards the 3 of them. Looking from afar, the attacks of the demon wolves were like a torrential downpour, beating Tan Sheng and the other 2 into an extremely sorry state. The 3 of them formed a triangle and used their spirit tools to block the attacking demon wolves. From time to time, a demon wolf would be injured and blood would splatter. Although the demon wolves had rough skin and thick flesh, the strength of Tan Sheng and the other 2 was right there. If they didn't rely on their advantage in numbers to make them flustered, a single demon wolf, even if it was a leader, would not be their opponent. The methods that cultivators could use were ultimately much stronger than those of demon beasts. While the battle was in full swing, Lu Yi only stood calmly in the distance, quietly watching. Occasionally he would raise his hand to release a spirit tool or a spirit tool to distract Tan Sheng and the others. Tan Sheng and the other 2 were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. They had gone deep into Great Mang Mountain these days, eating and sleeping in the open, and had encountered many obstacles along the way. After finally finding Lu Yi with great difficulty, they never thought that they would be greeted with such a situation. The huge wolf pack launched continuous attacks on them, but the person they were looking for was standing on the side and watching the show. It was simply unreasonable. They really couldn't understand how this Lu Yi could have such good luck to be able to directly subdue a wolf pack for his own use. If not for the wolf pack's obstruction, the 3 of them could casually make a move and behead him. In the midst of the fierce battle, the 3 of them sensed that something was not quite right. When some demon wolves pounced over to bite, a trace of light clearly flashed across their mouths. There were even more demon wolves that suddenly had a defensive spirit pattern appear on their backs when they were attacked. Looking carefully, they indeed saw that many demon wolves had a golden arrow-like mark on their mouths. Wuxia has tattooed these beasts. Xiao Yang shouted in a low voice. Tan Xing and Wei Kei were both shocked. Although they had long known that Lu Yi had considerable attainments in the array Dao, they never knew that he actually had advanced in the Dao of tattooing. To be able to tattoo demon beasts, it undoubtedly explained a lot of things. This guy was going against the heavens. How did he know everything? Over here, the fierce battle continued without end. Unable to take down the three for a long time, the alpha wolf seemed to be somewhat angry. Standing outside the battlefield, it raised its head to the sky and let out a long howl. In the next instant, the wolf pack's attacks suddenly became more concentrated. Tan Xing and the others' mouths were filled with bitterness as they ate coptis. The more they ate, the worse the situation became. If this continued, forget about killing Lu Yi, it would be difficult to guarantee that they would be able to escape unscathed. They couldn't delay any longer. Fighting to the death with the wolf pack was undoubtedly very unwise. From beginning to end, they only had one goal. Wei Kei kill Lu Yi. As Xiao Yang roared, the long saber in his hand blossomed with a dazzling light. His entire body's spiritual energy boiled. Tan Xing sensed his intentions and hurriedly urged his own strength to cooperate. Violent spiritual energy swept out. With the combined strength of the two, they forcibly tore a gap in the wolf pack's encirclement. From that gap, a saber light like a waterfall slashed towards Lu Yi. The mountain-coiling saber was unsheathed and blood chi gathered in his right arm. With a flash of light, Lu Yi's figure was sent flying. With his fourth-order cultivation, taking a ninth-order cultivator's saber light head-on was still lacking. This blow caused the blood in his chest to roil and his saber-wielding right arm to become somewhat numb. The saber light shattered, and immediately after, Wei Kei's figure pounced over. His face was filled with a ferocious look as spirit chi surged from his body, revealing his murderous intent. Tan Xing and Xiao Yang had teamed up to create this opportunity for him, so he couldn't let them down. Seeing Lu Yi's figure fly backwards, Wei Kei raised his hand and blasted a spell technique towards Lu Yi. At the same time, his figure moved like a shadow as he opened his hand and condensed spirit chi in his palm, making it seem as if he wanted to kill Lu Yi. Lu Yi formed a defensive barrier in front of him and blocked the spell technique's attack, but when it shattered, his figure was sent flying even further away. Immediately afterwards, under Wei Kei's watchful gaze, Lu Yi's body seemed to have crashed into a transparent membrane, and with a ripple, he disappeared. Another spirit array? Wei Kei was startled, but when he heard the howling of wolves behind him, he grit his teeth and hurriedly gave chase. Although he wasn't sure what kind of spirit array Lu Yi had arranged in front of him, it wasn't easy for him to rush out of the encirclement of the wolves. If he couldn't capture Lu Yi quickly, all his previous efforts would have been in vain. Without Tan Xing and Xiao Yang by his side, his situation would be even worse. So, even if he knew it wasn't wise to pursue, Wei Kei had no choice but to bite the bullet and give chase. His body seemed to have broken through a barrier and Wei Kei felt himself being enveloped by a spirit array, but when he looked around he didn't see Lu Yi's figure. Instead, a thick fog suddenly appeared around him. The thick fog spread extremely quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it became so dark that he couldn't even see his fingers in front of him. What shocked Wei Kei even more was that there were colorful lights constantly shuttling back and forth in this thick fog. As these lights changed, inexplicable shadows flashed across his vision from time to time. An illusion array. Wei Kei immediately knew what kind of spirit array he had fallen into, and a chill ran from head to toe as he cursed inwardly. What the hell is this Lu Yi? Has his attainments in the Tao of spirit arrays reached such a high level? Since they had broken into the spirit land, they had experienced a defensive spirit array, an entrapment spirit array, a flight restriction spirit array, and now an illusion array, and this was only what he had seen. There must be many more he hadn't seen. Could a cultivator at the Cloud River tier really set up so many profound formations? But on second thought, that guy could even arrange a transmission array, so what couldn't he arrange? Thinking so, Wei Kei didn't dare to stay in place and immediately urged his body to rush out of the range of the spirit array. This was undoubtedly the wisest response. After all, the range of the spirit array was limited, so as long as he kept running in one direction, he would eventually be able to escape. The speed of a ninth-order cultivator was extremely fast, and Wei Kei was using his full strength, so it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was as fast as lightning. However, as time passed, a scene that made him feel despair appeared. No matter how fast he ran, no matter how hard he tried, he was always wrapped in fog, unable to escape from the shroud of the spirit array. Somewhere in the spirit array following Wei Kei's movements, Lu Yi was constantly adjusting the spirit array. This was the first time he had observed someone break into the illusion array, so he naturally wanted to summarize his experience and see how effective this spirit array was. For the time being, the effect was quite good. The illusion array constructed with the fog and lightning spirit crests as its core seemed to have the effect of confusing the enemy's perception, so even though Wei Kei thought he was running in one direction, in fact, under Lu Ye's adjustments, he had been running in circles inside the spirit array without being aware of it. Inside the spirit array, Wei Kei's forehead was covered in sweat, and his expression was solemn. He had also noticed some clues. Logically speaking, inside such a spirit array, everything one saw was illusory. What one saw might not be true, but one's perception would never be false. But now, it seemed that there was something wrong with his perception, otherwise there was no reason he couldn't escape. Chapter 567. Trapped in the illusion array, Wei Kei was shocked but not panicked. After all, he was a 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, while Lu Yi, a 4th-order cultivator, could only trap him and not kill him. The only thing he could do now was to escape from here as quickly as possible. Although Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang were stronger than him, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. They were definitely not the opponents of the wolf pack, so it was unrealistic for them to expect him to kill Lu Yi quickly. If he stayed here for too long, no matter what happened to Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang, he would not have a good end. But how can I escape from here? Wei Kei was annoyed and gritted his teeth as he shouted, "Lu Yi, is this all you've got? Come out and fight if you have the guts." He was just a 9th-order cultivator. If he had any other choice, he would have been embarrassed to shout such words at a 4th-order cultivator. Of course, he was just shouting and didn't think it would have any effect. It was the mixed aura of a cultivator's spiritual energy and vitality. It was right in front of him. As long as Lu Yi was in his right mind, he would definitely not show himself in front of him. However, to Wei Kei's surprise, just as he finished speaking, he suddenly felt a different aura flowing not far in front of him. Wei Kei didn't think too much about it and kept moving forward until a tall silhouette appeared in the fog in front of him. Only then did he realize that something was wrong. Lu Yi's figure can't be so tall, right? Seduso CC first. Wei Kei was overjoyed. He raised his hand and sent out a golden arc towards the front. At the same time, he rushed forward, ready to take down Lu Yi. The golden arc of lightning struck the target with a dull thud. It felt as if his spell technique had struck some kind of indestructible barrier. What is this? Is this an illusion? As the dense fog surged, a huge fan-like hand reached out and grabbed at Wei Kei's neck. The speed of the hand wasn't fast, but it was accompanied by an aura that could cover the sky and cover the earth. Even if Wei Kei was a 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, he could not help but have an illusion that once he was grabbed by this hand, it would be difficult for him to escape. However, before he could stand firm, the sound of swords rang out one after another. At the same time, he felt a tingling pain all over his body. Flying sword. Wei Kei's expression changed abruptly as he frantically activated his spiritual energy to protect himself. Wei Kei was at a loss for a moment. Spiritual energy surged around his body and a golden arrow shot forward. It hit the giant hand and with a bang the spell exploded. The giant hand paused for a moment, but it quickly grabbed down at an even faster speed. Wei Kei's hair stood on end as he quickly retreated. This was not the end of it. Just as Wei Kei was wondering what was going on, another figure flashed past him. The fiery red blade slashed down, and the violent slash shattered his protective spiritual power. The figure disappeared in a flash, and before Wei Kei could counterattack, the other party had already disappeared, leaving only a bloody wound on his body. In the next instant, flying swords slashed at him from all directions, causing the spiritual light on his body to flicker incessantly, and his protective spiritual energy quickly dimmed. Another spell struck him from the side, causing his body to tremble violently. He was beaten silly. He thought he only needed to deal with the 4th-order Lu Yi, but from the various changes just now, it seemed there was more than one Lu Yi in this illusion array. Wei Kei exclaimed as the burly figure in front of him pressed down on him like a mountain and punched out. With a bang, Wei Kei's body was sent flying and he landed awkwardly. He hurriedly got up and looked around blankly, but there was no one in front of him except for the rolling fog and colorful ribbons of light. The sword cultivator. It was Li Baxian. Wei Kei immediately reacted. They had already guessed that Lu Yi would invite Li Baxian to enter the spiritual land. However, when they entered the spiritual land, they only saw Lu Yi and no one else. At that time they didn't think too much about it. But now, it seems that Lu Ye wasn't the only one in the spiritual land. In that short period of time, there were 4 people who attacked him, and in addition to Lu Ye there were 3 others. One was a burly body cultivator, one was a sword cultivator, and one was a magic cultivator. As for the body cultivator, Wei Kei had no clue. He assumed Lu Ye had found a helper from somewhere. Thinking of this, Wei Kei's heart sank to the bottom. The sword cultivator who attacked him was undoubtedly Li Baxian, and his cultivation level corresponded as well. The magic cultivator was Feng Yuechan, and the 2 of them had always been inseparable. Dong dong dong, heavy footsteps came from the side again as if a huge monster was running. When Wei Kei turned his head to look, he saw the burly figure appear again. It broke through the fog and rushed right in front of him like a bolt of lightning, crashing into him. Trapped in the illusory array, he didn't feel much danger because Lu Yi couldn't do anything to him. If the other party really wanted to kill him, he could wait for an opportunity to counterattack. But now he had to face not only Lu Yi, but also 3 other people. Coupled with the illusory array, Wei Kei could already smell the scent of death. In addition to the flying sorts, there were also some spells that came from nowhere. He staggered and his qi and blood surged. Behind him a fierce murderous aura surged. Wei Kei hurriedly turned around and saw a fiery red blade of light. Wei Kei hurriedly dodged and cast a spell at the other party. The spell landed on the man's body, but the burly figure only paused for a moment. There was no trace of injury at all. While Wei Kei's attention was distracted, the sound of swords rang out again. Then Wei Kei felt himself being enveloped by a storm of attacks. Hurriedly landing, Wei Kei looked panicked and shouted, "Brother Xia, Brother Tan, save me!" He didn't expect that chasing Lu Yi would put him in prison. The blade fell, accompanied by Wei Kei's cry of alarm, and a huge wound appeared on his chest, blood spilling out. The burly figure had already closed in on Wei Quebec. It seemed to be a clumsy punch, but it contained an extremely terrifying force. Wei Kei's entire body flew out like a ragged sack. His body was in midair and he continuously spat out blood. He was like a fish on a chopping board, and the enemy would come and cut him from time to time. In such a situation, if he didn't ask for help, he could only wait for death. The people besieging him weren't very strong, all of them were 4th or 5th order cultivators. If it was a normal environment, Wei Kei would be able to deal with them easily even if he was alone. But inside the illusion array, it was difficult for him to exert his strength. On the contrary, the other party was like a fish in water, attacking from time to time and then running away, leaving him no room to fight back. Even so, the 2 of them were struggling to cope with the constant attacks of the wolf pack. They were hoping that Wei Kei could succeed as soon as possible. This way, as long as they killed Lu Yi and obtained the array jade slip, they could retreat calmly. But after waiting and waiting, they heard Wei Kei's cry for help. A shrill cry rang out. In the spirit land, Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang, who were fighting with the wolf pack, both changed their expressions. They were in an extremely bad situation at the moment. There were too many monster wolves. If it weren't for their profound foundation, an ordinary 9th order cultivator would have been unable to hold on. What's going on? Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang were dumbfounded. How could they not be shocked? While he was busy, he took a moment to look at the source of the sound. He saw that the fog was rolling and surging, covering a large area. Wei Kei and Lu Yi's figures were nowhere to be seen. There were only flashes of light from time to time in the fog, mixed with Wei Kei's cries and screams. Feeling annoyed, they should have brought more people with them. They thought that with 3 9th order cultivators working together, as long as they found Lu Yi, the other party wouldn't be able to do anything, but who knew things would develop like this? After committing suicide and entering the spirit land, everything they encountered was unexpected, making it difficult for them to adapt. Although they didn't know what happened to Wei Kei, they could infer from the sounds coming from there that he was in a bad situation. In this situation, let alone killing Lu Yi, whether or not they could escape unscathed was a problem. No matter what happened to Wei Kei, it was related to Lu Yi. Once Wei Kei died, Lu Yi would free himself and the 2 of them would not have a good end. So, leaving quickly was the most important thing. In the fierce battle, Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang looked at each other, and although there was no communication, they could see each other's thoughts. They couldn't stay here for long. In such a situation, it was no longer realistic for them to break the spirit array with their own strength. Besieged by the wolf pack, they could only protect themselves at the moment, so if they really wanted to break the spirit array, they would have to borrow the power of the wolf pack and let the aftermath of their battle bombard the spirit array. Although this method was less efficient, it was better than waiting for death here. But now that the spirit land was surrounded by a spirit array, if they wanted to leave they had to break the spirit array first. As for whether to save Wei Kei or not, it was no longer within the scope of their consideration. The premise of saving someone was to protect themselves first. If they couldn't even protect themselves, how could they save someone? Making up their mind, the two tacitly cooperated and moved the battlefield to the edge of the spirit array. He didn't know where the enemy was hiding, but he knew that as long as he showed a flaw, he would be greeted by a storm of attacks. In less than a stick of incense worth of time, he had 7 or 8 wounds on his body, the most serious of which was the one on his abdomen, where a flying sword had pierced through his body. Blood kept flowing out and his face twisted in pain. So even if he knew that what he was doing was like drinking poison to quench his thirst, he couldn't stop because he would die faster if he stopped. In order to break the spirit array as soon as possible, the two of them spared no effort, which led to more injuries on their bodies, making them look extremely miserable. Time passed. In the psychedelic array, Wei Kei's hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in wounds and blood. He crazily urged his spiritual power and cast powerful spells, bombarding them aimlessly in all directions. This was very effective. At the very least, no one would sneak up on him while he was casting spells. Chapter 568. Inside the illusion array, Wei Kei didn't hesitate to use his secret techniques in order to protect himself. Even if he was a 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, he couldn't hold on for long. The spiritual power in his body flowed out like a flood from a broken dam, and the bombardment of spells caused a buzzing sound to ring out in all directions. Although he opened his mouth to call for help, Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang did not come. He knew that the two of them were probably in a bad situation, otherwise they would not have left him alone. The smell of blood lingered at the tip of his nose and the pain all over his body made him sweat profusely. The aura of death was like a sea drowning him. He never expected that just coming to kill Lu Yi would put him in such a dangerous situation. If he had known, he wouldn't have agreed to accompany Tan Sheng here. However, regret was useless at this moment. In such an environment he couldn't see any hope of escaping. Just as he was thinking this, a sudden change occurred. The formation that had been shrouding the area suddenly changed. Then, the surrounding fog and the colorful illusions quickly dissipated. Wei Kei was stunned for a moment, then ecstatic. He had actually unintentionally broken this illusion array. Heaven never bars one's way out. When the fog dissipated, he saw several figures gathered not far away from him. Among them were Li Baxian, Feng Yuchan, and Lu Yi. In addition, there was a burly body cultivator wearing linen clothes with bulging muscles. Lu Yi's eyes flashed with a look of surprise. He obviously didn't expect that he would be able to break the array here. Lu Yi really didn't expect this. The illusion array was arranged by him with the help of array flags. Unlike the protection array and entrapment array, it didn't have much defensive ability, so if the array flags were destroyed, it would be difficult to maintain it. Just now, Wei Kei had launched a series of aimless frenzied attacks. Coincidentally, he had hit one of the array flags which had led to the collapse of the psychedelic array. It could only be said that this guy's luck was really good. After breaking the array and seeing the real bodies of Lu Yi and the others, Wei Kei immediately roared, "Lu Yi!" How terrified he was just now was how angry he was now. He was a dignified 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, yet he had been attacked by a few 4th or 5th-order Cloud River Realm cultivators without being able to fight back. He had even been forced to call for help from his companions. This undoubtedly made him lose a lot of face. As he roared, a ferocious spell blasted towards Lu Yi. Before Lu Yi could move, the giant armor had already arrived. There was a flash of spiritual light in front of it, blocking the spell. The price it had to pay was only to be forced back a few steps, but it was completely unscathed. This scene caused Wei Kei's eyelids to twitch. He was secretly shocked at the strength of this body cultivator's physique. Previously, he had been in the fog, so he hadn't been able to clearly feel the power of the giant armor. Now that he saw with his own eyes that a 4th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator had easily blocked his spirit art, he was truly shocked. There was a difference of 5 minor levels between their cultivations. Logically speaking, even if the other party was an individual cultivator, he should not have been able to withstand that attack. But in reality, not only did the other party withstand it, he did not even have much of a reaction. Just as he was about to attack again, an inexplicable sense of weakness suddenly surged, causing Wei Kei to stagger. He had consumed too much of his strength before, and his injuries were not light. How could he fight again at this moment? Sword cries rang out as Li Baxin's body surged with light and a series of flying swords shot towards Wei Quebec. Feng Yuechan was standing beside him, her hands constantly forming seals as she cast a series of exquisite spirit arts towards Wei Quebec. Wei Kei's face changed as he hurriedly pushed his almost exhausted spirit chi to protect himself. Deng deng deng. The giant armor took large strides forward, leaping up and down between the flying swords and spirit arts. It quickly closed the distance between it and Wei Kei, carrying with it the pressure of a mountain. When it got close, it took advantage of the fact that Wei Kei was entangled by the flying swords and spirit arts to kick him. Feeling the terrifying power of this kick, Wei Kei's pupils shrank. In this situation he would rather be cut by Li Baxin's flying swords or hit by Feng Yuechan's spirit arts than let the giant armor kick him. If this kick connected, he would explode into a bloody mist in an instant. At this critical moment of life and death, his mind was tense to the extreme, and he actually displayed a speed that did not belong to a magic cultivator. While blocking the flying sword and the spell attack, he narrowly avoided the kick that the giant armor had launched. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, a figure had already rushed out from behind the giant armor's burly figure. It was Lu Yi. A fiery red blade flashed, reflecting the panic on Wei Kei's face. Facing this blade coming down from above, he had no room to dodge. Flash. The blade slashed down and broke through Wei Kei's spirit arts protection, leaving a huge wound from his shoulder blade to his waist. Through the wound, one could vaguely see his squirming organs. The powerful impact sent Wei Kei's figure flying backwards, spitting out blood from his mouth. He barely managed to stabilize his body. His vision was blood red, stars were flying in front of his eyes, and the spirit arts river in his body was in chaos. He had already consumed a great deal of his spirit arts and his injuries were not light. Now that he had suffered such a heavy blow, he was like an oil lamp that had run out of oil. Seeing that Lu Yi wasn't going to let him off, dragging his blazing long blade towards him, Wei Kei couldn't help but be ruthless. His foundation was indeed not as good as Tan Sheng's or Xiao Liang's, but he had cultivated to the 9th order Cloud River realm and had experienced many life and death crises over the years, so he did not lack the courage to go all out against his enemy. He knew in his heart that he was doomed this time and secretly regretted being blinded by greed, but what was the use of regret now? However, even if he died, he would not let his enemy off so easily. Raising his hand, Wei Kei reached into his storage bag and pulled out something. It was an arrow, a broken one at that. Judging from its appearance, this arrow had been lost for many years, so Wei Kei had no idea where he had obtained it. However, something that could be taken out at this time was undoubtedly Wei Kei's most precious treasure and his final trump card. Biting the tip of his tongue, Wei Kei sprayed a mist of blood onto the broken arrow, causing it to immediately release a brilliant light. At the same time, an extremely dangerous aura filled the air. Lu Yi, who was rushing towards him with his blade, immediately stopped and decisively retreated. At this moment, he felt a great sense of danger in his heart and stared at the broken arrow in Wei Kei's hand, knowing full well that the danger was coming from this broken arrow. Wei Kei's spirit chi madly surged into the broken arrow, causing it to shine as brightly as the sun. With a mouth full of blood, Wei Kei grinned, "Lu Yi, even if I die, you'll be buried with me." Both Li Baxin and Feng Yuchan realized that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. This broken arrow was obviously a treasure that surpassed a spirit artifact or even an artifact. Such a treasure, even if damaged, was bound to be extremely powerful. Once Wei Kei successfully summoned it, no one knew what kind of damage it would cause. Therefore the two of them madly urged their spirit chi, wanting to kill Wei Kei before he could summon this treasure. However, the difference in their cultivation was obvious. Even if the two of them joined forces, they could only cause Wei Kei's body to tremble violently and his blood to splatter, unable to take his life for the time being. In less than 3 breaths, the broken arrow in Wei Kei's hand suddenly turned into a stream of light and shot out like lightning. At this moment, all the hair on Lu Ye's body stood on end as a sense of danger he had never felt before arose in his heart. Without even thinking about it, he rushed in a certain direction, wanting to increase the distance between him and Wei Quebec. However, the stream of light was extremely fast and arrived in front of him in almost the blink of an eye. Crouching on Lu Ye's shoulder, Hupa also sensed the danger and arched his back on Lu Ye's shoulder, growling in a low voice as his chi and blood collided with Lu Ye's. Lu Yi raised his blade and the flesh on his right arm instantly bulged. Flash. Consecutive slashes. A series of explosions rang out. To an outsider, this was just the sound of a single slash, but in truth, Lu Yi had slashed out 5 times in an extremely short period of time. With each slash, Wei Kei's body trembled as if he had been struck by a mountain saber. Blood gushed from his mouth and his face paled at a visible rate. These slashes with all his strength were not without effect. The stream of light in front of him paused for a moment, and it was this fleeting opportunity that allowed Lu Yi to fall to the ground. The stream of light brushed past the tip of his nose, stirring up a gust of wind that made Lu Yi's face ache. But before he could catch his breath, he saw from the corner of his eye that the stream of light had changed direction and was now attacking him. This thing was clearly under Wei Kei's control. Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan were desperately attacking him, but he didn't care, only focused on killing Lu Yi. This was exactly what he had roared before. Even if he died, he would bury Lu Yi with him. Lu Yi didn't know what kind of treasure this was, but its lethality was so strong that even if he used all his strength, he could only stop it for a moment. Unless he killed Wei Kei, there would be no end to it. And when it attacked again, Lu Yi had just gotten up from the ground and could not dodge in time. Just as he was about to attack again, he felt a weight on his shoulder and a large hand grab him. Then Lu Yi felt himself being thrown away. In midair, he saw Giant Armor's burly figure standing in his original position. With a flash of light, a tortoise-shell-like barrier suddenly appeared in front of Giant Armor. The stream of light attacked. Asterisk boom. Asterisk with a loud bang, Giant Armor's body shook violently. Dense cracks suddenly appeared on that seemingly impregnable tortoise-shell-like barrier, and in the next moment, it shattered with a loud bang. The stream of light pierced through Giant Armor's body, bringing with it a spray of blood. With a muffled groan, Giant Armor fell to one knee. Lu Yi's eyes became cold and harsh, and the flames on the mountain plate saber in his hand burned even more fiercely. On the other side, Li Baxian's body had merged with the sword light, transforming into a shocking sword aura that attacked Wei Quebec. The sword in his hand flickered like a snake's tongue, leaving bloody wounds on Wei Kei's body. He originally wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Wei Kei, but Wei Kei used a spell to push him far away. At this moment, Lu Yi swooped down from the sky, followed closely by the stream of light that had wounded Giant Armor. Even though he felt the murderous intent behind him, Lu Yi's eyes did not waver in the slightest. Wei Kei was clearly an arrow at the end of its flight. If this saber slashed down, he would undoubtedly die. Now it was time to see if his saber was faster or if his opponent's treasure was faster. To be continued. Chapter 569. Wei Kei's figure staggered as he was covered in wounds, a tragic sight to behold. First, he had been attacked by Lu Yi and the others in the illusion array. Although he had managed to break through the array by chance, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Then he was besieged by everyone and had even resorted to using the broken arrow artifact. It could be said that at this moment he was truly a lamp without oil. His vision was blurred, and when he looked up, all he could see was Lu Yi's figure swooping down from the sky. He couldn't even see Lu Yi's face. A bright blade light flashed as the mountain ascending saber easily broke through Wei Kei's thin body protecting spirit chi and slashed down at his neck. Passing by each other, Lu Yi's feet plowed several dozen meters into the ground before he slowly stabilized himself. The illusory Grand Array played a huge role in their battle success. Being in the middle of the illusory Grand Array, Wei Kei was unable to withstand their attacks. One had to know that back in the hunting ground, Lu Yi's group of 3 had fought He Bing with great difficulty, and in the end, Lu Yi had even used his beast transformation secret technique to kill him. Although there was only a 2-order difference between the 7th order and 9th order, the difference in strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even if Lu Yi and the others had made significant progress in their cultivation compared to when they were in the hunting ground, even with the addition of Giant Armor, if not for the illusion array, the 4 of them together would not have been Wei Kei's opponent. At most, they would have been defeated one by one. The sense of crisis also disappeared as soon as he slashed down with his saber. After all, the broken arrow was controlled by Wei Kei, so once he died, the artifact also lost its power, its light converging as it reverted to its original form and fell from the sky. Lu Yi breathed a long sigh of relief and turned around to see Wei Kei's headless body lying on the ground, blood gushing from his neck. A Cloud River 9th Order cultivator had been killed by him, Li Baxian, and the others. Almost at the moment of Wei Kei's death, Xiao Liang suddenly roared angrily. His long saber bloomed with a shocking saber light, and he fiercely slashed forward. With this saber strike, the entrapment array, which was already on the verge of collapse, finally couldn't hold on any longer and shattered. When the 2 of them saw that Wei Kei was in a precarious situation, They knew that it would be difficult to kill Lu Ye this time, so they had been thinking of ways to escape. Trapped in the entrapment array, the only way to escape was to break the array. Seeing Wei Kei's vitality disappear, Tan Xing and Xiao Liang, who were entangled with the wolf pack, were shocked. Neither of them had expected that Wei Kei, a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator, would actually die at the hands of Lu Ye's group. At this moment, the two of them were in an extremely miserable state. Their bodies were covered with wounds and their clothes were dyed red with blood. Although the two of them were extremely powerful, they were still powerless when facing the siege of an entire pack of wolves. If it weren't for the wolf pack's misgivings and the fact that they didn't dare to push them too far, the two of them would have already lost their lives. Even so, the two of them were still heavily injured and their auras were in disorder. It was a cooperative relationship, but Wei Kei had been careless and had been killed by a few 4th or 5th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators because of his own stupidity. Moreover, they were also in a bad situation. If they didn't escape now, they would be left behind as well. The two figures rushed out one after another and wolf howls rang out. Pale blue wind blades flew towards the two of them, hitting Xiao Liang and Tan Xing left and right, adding new injuries to their bodies. Under their guidance, the aftermath of the battle with the wolf pack spread out in all directions again and again. After all, it was an unmanned spirit array. Although it was strong, it wasn't too heaven-defying. Bit by bit, the spirit array was worn down until Xiao Liang used his shocking saber strike and finally broke. "Let's go." Xiao Liang let out a low shout and charged out. Tan Xing followed closely behind. Even though Wei Kei had died right under their noses, neither of them had any intention of avenging him at this moment. Normally, he wouldn't chase after two 9th Order cultivators no matter what. It was no different from courting death. But at this moment, Tan Xing and Xiao Liang were both seriously injured. It was hard to say how much of their strength they could use. This was the best time to kill them, otherwise, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to kill them after they recovered. Seeing this, Li Baxian hurriedly followed on his sword while shouting, "Yu-chan, stay behind and take care of junior brother Giant Armor." Unfortunately, the monster wolves couldn't fly, so if these two wanted to escape, they couldn't stop them. After killing Wei Kei, Lu Yi had just calmed his tumbling spirit chi and hadn't had time to deal with Tan Xing and Xiao Liang when he saw the two break out of the spirit array. He immediately chased after them. A group of monster wolves under the command of the Alpha Wolf ran out with Lu Yi, obviously wanting to help, but after only half an hour, this group of monster wolves returned. This was the downside of not being able to fly. No matter how fast they ran in the mountains, they couldn't outrun flying on their own. After chasing for a while, Lu Yi and the others disappeared, so the monster wolves could only return. At this time, Feng Yu-chan had also finished bandaging Giant Armor's wounds. Giant Armor's injuries looked terrible, but in fact, they weren't serious and would only take a day or two to recover. Giant Armor was previously injured by the broken arrow. Although body cultivators had thick skin and strong recovery abilities, it was still an injury that pierced through his body. Since then he had been half kneeling on the ground, so his injuries were unknown. He and Lu Yi were enough to chase after them. If they could kill them, the two of them could work together, but if they couldn't, then Feng Yu-chan wouldn't be of any help. Hearing this, Feng Yu-chan stopped and watched as Lu Yi and Li Baxian turned into streaks of light and chased them out of the spiritual land, deep into Mount Taimang. Back then in the hunting ground, Lu Yi had been chased to the point that he had nowhere to go. Less than 2 months later, the situation had been completely reversed. It was as the saying goes, the river flows east for 30 years and the river flows west for 30 years. Every dog has his day. While running, Tan Xing roared, "Lu Yi, stop. If this continues, no one will have a good ending." This was already an extremely deep place in the Taimang Mountains, and there were many powerful demonic beasts entrenched there. Normally, even if there were cultivators who came in, they would all be sneaky, not daring to make too much of a commotion, so as to not alarm any demonic beasts. She didn't know how Li Baxian and Lu Yi were doing. She tried to send a message but there was no reply, so she could only wait silently. At this time, Lu Yi and Li Baxian had already chased them for several hundred kilometers. Tan Xing and Xiao Liang, who were running in front, had no intention of stopping. They just desperately ran forward, blood constantly spilling from their bodies. This made Lu Yi even more certain that these two were in bad condition. Otherwise, two 9th Order cultivators wouldn't be in such a sorry state. If he missed such a rare opportunity, he would never be able to kill these two in the Cloud River battlefield again. These two were both Cloud River 9th Order cultivators who could break through to the True Lake realm at any time. Once they did, they would have to leave the Cloud River battlefield. Lu Yi was chased to a dead end by them in the hunting ground, so he remembered this grudge in his heart. Moreover, they had found the spirit land. If he didn't kill them this time, the location of the spirit land would definitely be exposed, and there might be some trouble in the future. Wei Kei was already dead, so as long as he could kill these two, the existence of the spirit land wouldn't be exposed. If they really alerted some powerful monster beasts, Tan Sheng and Xiao Yang wouldn't have a good ending, but the same was true for Lu Yi and Li Baxian. Therefore, the best way to deal with this was for Lu Yi to stop and let them escape. But facing Tan Sheng's shout, Lu Yi remained unmoved. Lu Yi didn't speak, but Li Baxian coldly snorted, "If you have the ability, then let's fight. Let's see if you die or us brothers." Tan Sheng, who was running in front, almost ground his teeth to pieces. He and Xiao Yang were both Cloud River 9th Order cultivators. In the past, they didn't dare to say that they could summon the wind and summon the rain, but at the very least they were a group of top masters. When had they ever been chased by 2 4th or 5th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators in such a sorry state? No one would believe him if he told them. Lu Ye's killing intent was firm, so how could he be swayed by a few words? And the more Tan Sheng said this, the more it meant that his situation was bad. Otherwise he would have just stopped and fought. "Lu Yi, do you really want to die together with us?" Tan Sheng roared again. Not only that, as time passed, the situation of the two became worse and worse, and the speed of their flying artifacts slowed down. If this continued, it was only a matter of time before Lu Yi and Li Baxian caught up. "Brother Xia." Tan Sheng turned his head to look at Xiao Yang, only to see that this powerful blade master from the Wild Blade sect was as pale as paper and his aura was chaotic, but his eyes were still as sharp as a blade. But today such a bizarre thing was happening to them, so how could they not be angry and sullen? If it weren't for their serious injuries, how could Lu Yi and Li Baxian dare to be so presumptuous in front of them? The injuries they suffered during the battle with the wolf pack were too serious, so the two of them couldn't even use 30% of their usual strength. They couldn't even shake off the enemy's pursuit. While they still had the strength to fight, they might have a chance to kill these two. After all, they were only 4th or 5th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators. Although Tan Sheng knew that this wasn't the best way to deal with it, there was no better way, so he nodded lightly, "Then let's fight." Saying so, the two of them flew straight down and landed on the ground a moment later. Previously, when they were entangled with the wolf pack, Xiao Yang's injuries were much more serious than his, and because Xiao Yang's strength was greater than his, the wolf pack was more focused on Xiao Yang, causing most of the pressure to fall on Xiao Yang. Facing Tan Sheng's inquiry, Xiao Yang coldly spat out a single word, "Fight." They couldn't escape, and if they continued like this, their condition would only get worse and worse. When the time came, they wouldn't even be qualified to fight. Li Baxian grabbed the wine gourd at his waist, took a sip and said softly, "Little junior brother, which one do you choose?" Lu Ye's eyes were fixed on Xiao Yang as he slowly walked forward. Li Baxian nodded, "Then I want the remaining one." Saying so, he opened his mouth and spat out a dozen flying swords towards Tan Sheng. With their current state, it was no longer suitable for the two of them to fight in the air, as that would consume more strength, so fighting on the ground was the best choice. Just after the two of them landed, Lu Yi and Li Baxian also arrived, standing less than 1,000 meters away from them. 4 pairs of eyes collided in the air, sparks flying everywhere, and the atmosphere in the mountain suddenly became tense. Chapter 570. The flying swords shuttled through the void and shot towards Tan Sheng one after another, but Tan Sheng simply flicked his spear and blocked the oncoming flying swords, causing a series of clanging sounds to ring out. Worthy of being a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator, even in the face of such a fierce and concentrated onslaught, he was still able to defend himself and even had the strength to counterattack, resisting the onslaught of flying swords as he continued to press towards Li Baxian. Li Baxian was a sword cultivator, and the purest kind at that. Facing such an enemy, Tan Sheng knew that he could not pull away, otherwise, under the continuous barrage of flying swords, there would be no room to breathe. Dealing with a sword cultivator was actually somewhat similar to dealing with a Dharma cultivator. The key was to close the distance and not give the sword cultivator any room to maneuver his sword. But even if he closed the distance, it was still more dangerous than dealing with a Dharma cultivator, because sword cultivators were also armament cultivators, and close combat was a common occurrence for them. Li Baxian grabbed the wine gourd in his hand and took a big gulp. At the same time, he burped in satisfaction. Sword cries rang out from behind him as more flying swords spread out. With a thought, the flying swords shot out like chasing stars and moon, making it difficult for Tan Sheng to advance even an inch. While the battle was in full swing on the other side, Lu Yi and Xiao Yang's figures had already rushed forward. Both of them were saber cultivators, and one of them was from the Wild Saber sect, the most orthodox saber master. Compared to a sword cultivator, a saber master did not lack killing intent, but more of an indomitable spirit. So even if Xiao Yang was seriously injured at the moment, even if his face was pale, facing an opponent several minor realms lower in cultivation, he did not have the slightest intention of retreating. No matter who it was, neither of them had any intention of using their imperial flying swords to test the waters. The distance between them quickly closed and they collided. With a loud bang, spirit chi exploded as the two long swords collided and stared at each other at close range. The ground beneath their feet instantly cracked like a spider web upon the collision. Violent waves of air swept out in all directions, causing the surrounding trees to sway. After a brief moment of deadlock, both of them suddenly exerted their strength and the two long swords crossed, Lu Yi slashing towards Xiao Yang's neck while Xiao Yang stabbed towards Lu Ye's chest. The moment they clashed, they were fighting with their lives on the line. This was a clash between bladesmen. There was nothing fancy about it, only ruthlessness and mercilessness. The defensive spirit tattoo on Lu Ye's chest shattered and blood splattered everywhere. A thin, blood-red line appeared on Xiao Yang's neck and blood seeped out. In that instant, no matter who it was, both of them had walked through the gates of hell. His silhouette shifted, and the long sabers continued to clash. The clanging sounds were endless, and every clash was an intense collision of spiritual energy. His saber cultivator. This fight with Xiao Yang made him truly understand what it meant to be constantly walking on the edge of life and death. Both of them waved their swords with the mentality of killing the other and protecting themselves at the same time. But after just a moment they realized that it was impossible. If they risked their lives to kill the other, they would definitely be killed by the other. The most likely scenario was that they would die together. Neither of them could accept this. The speed at which the swords flashed became faster and faster, and the sounds of the swords colliding became more frequent. Lu Yi keenly sensed that Xiao Yang's qi and blood were converging towards his right arm. He was clearly using the blood transfer technique. In terms of cultivation, he was inferior to Xiao Yang. There was a gap of 5 small levels between them, which was impossible to make up for. But at this moment he could fight Xiao Yang to a standstill. All of this was because Xiao Yang was seriously injured and could not unleash his full strength. This was undoubtedly very advantageous to him. As time passed, Xiao Yang's condition would worsen. On the other hand, because he had been merging his qi and blood with Hu Pe, he could unleash more and more strength. If he could really stimulate the beast transformation, Xiao Yang would die without a doubt. But this required time and the accumulation of momentum. Ever since he obtained the secret beast transformation technique, he had only stimulated it in his battle with He Bing. But even so, Lu Yi did not hesitate to attack. Xiao Yang obviously knew that the longer the battle dragged on, the worse it would be for him. So, he used almost all his strength in every slash. Even though he was bleeding profusely, the power of his attacks grew stronger and stronger. The swords collided again and the recoil caused both of them to pause. But at this moment, Lu Yi suddenly felt a sense of danger. Looking up, he saw Xiao Yang holding his sword horizontally in front of him, one hand holding the hilt and the other pushing the blade horizontally. Violent spiritual energy suddenly burst out, and a stunning sword light suddenly slashed out. The speed of this slash was so fast that Lu Yi had no time to react. Fortunately, he had already retreated when he sensed something was wrong. But even so, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. He was hit. Lu Ye's heart sank. He did not know what Xiao Yang's slash was, but it was definitely a secret technique because it was stronger than all the previous slashes. The moment he was hit, Lu Ye's figure did not retreat. Instead, he advanced and, under Xiao Yang's stunned gaze, slashed down. Flash. Blood splattered. Consecutive slashes. However, when the second slash fell, it was blocked by Xiao Yang. The violent power sent him flying and Lu Ye's figure staggered. With Feng Xing's support on his legs, Lu Yi did not show any mercy. Wrapped in a terrifying pressure, he madly attacked Xiao Yang. His sword flashed, and for a moment, Xiao Yang found it difficult to resist, adding a few more wounds to his body. Although Yang Kai's secret technique had injured Lu Yi, using this secret technique in his severely wounded state had placed a great burden on his body. Under normal circumstances, after being injured by him, Lu Yi would definitely retreat. This way he would have time to catch his breath and prepare for the next wave of attacks. But the result was beyond his expectations. After Lu Yi was injured, not only did he not retreat, he instead took advantage of the situation to counterattack, causing Xiao Liang's situation to become even worse. What made Xiao Liang even more uncomfortable was that his opponent seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. At the beginning of their confrontation they were evenly matched, but now, the speed and strength of his opponent's slashes were much faster and fiercer than before. With the balance broken, all Xiao Liang could do was resist Lu Ye's attacks. Even though he was forced to retreat, Xiao Liang did not give up resisting. He took a moment to glance over at the other side of the battlefield, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Because Tan Sheng's situation was even worse than his. After all, this was Li Baxin, a legendary master who had been in the spirit stream realm for more than a decade. Although he was only a fifth-order cultivator now, the strength he could display was far beyond that. Tan Sheng's injuries were not lighter than his, but his strength was not as good. Fighting Li Baxin in such a situation, how could he have a good end? He couldn't even get close to Li Baxin. Even if he tried his best, he could only block the incoming flying swords. From time to time, new wounds would appear on his body. How could things have developed to this point? These three ninth-order masters had come to Grand Mang Mountain in high spirits to find Lu Yi for revenge, but when they found him, one of them had died while the other two were being chased down. It seemed they wouldn't live much longer. Before setting off they had thought of countless possibilities, including Lu Yi using the transmission array to escape, using the Heaven's Fate Pillar to escape, or using some other method to escape. But in the end, not only had they escaped, they had even been caught. It's over. Xiao Liang knew that he would not be able to escape this time. Without any will to live, a look of determination appeared on his face. Lu Yi, who was attacking fiercely, immediately noticed this change and immediately held back his strength to guard against the unexpected. Sure enough, the next moment, Xiao Liang completely gave up on defending, his spirit chi surging violently as he took on a stance of fighting Lu Yi with his life on the line. All kinds of exquisite blade techniques were displayed one after another, showing signs of reversing the situation for a while. However, at this moment, Lu Yi's and Hu Po's blood chi had merged to a very deep degree, so every time he struck out, he could borrow strength from Hu Po. It wouldn't be long before he could even activate his beast transformation secret technique, so no matter what Xiao Liang did, he was still like a trapped beast. However, at that moment, Lu Yi suddenly noticed some strange movements, causing him to frown. In the next moment, the sound of something tearing through the air came from a short distance away, followed by a stream of light. When the stream of light dissipated, many figures appeared and surrounded the battlefield where they were. How could there be so many people in the depths of Grand Mang Mountain? Lu Yi was puzzled. The most important thing was that he didn't know the origins of these people. There were quite a few of them, at least a dozen or so, and judging from the spirit chi fluctuations coming from their bodies, several of them were at the 9th order while the rest were mostly at the 6th order. Such a group of uninvited guests was not low in cultivation. The fierce battle instantly subsided. Not only did Lu Yi and Xiao Liang stop fighting, but even Li Baxin and Tan Sheng also stopped and separated, gathering together in pairs and remaining vigilant. In the middle of a life-or-death battle, a group of people had suddenly appeared. Before the situation was clear, who would dare act rashly? Even if Lu Yi and Li Baxin were unwilling, there was nothing they could do. On the other hand, Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang both breathed a sigh of relief. No matter which camp these people came from, at least the two of them weren't in any danger for the time being. Being able to live a little longer was still a little longer. What if these people were from Myriad Demon Ridge? Next to Li Baxin, Lu Yi held his mountain coiling saber, his spirit chi surging as he turned to look at him. Li Baxin slowly shook his head, indicating that he didn't know these people. He had a wide network of connections and had spent more than 10 years in the Spirit Stream battlefield, seeing off group after group of Spirit Stream stage cultivators. However, he had spent most of his time in the Spirit Stream battlefield in the Pillheart Sect's headquarters and rarely left. Most of the people he interacted with were experts on the Spirit Stream rankings. He didn't know many people who weren't on the Spirit Stream rankings and therefore he had never met any of them. Chapter 571. In the messy battlefield, uninvited guests suddenly appeared and surrounded the place, forcing the four who were fighting to stop. Li Baxin was sizing up this group of people, trying to guess their origins. Weren't Xiao Liang and Tan Sheng doing the same? They were already in a dire situation, and if nothing unexpected happened, the two of them would definitely die today, so they were happy to see this group of cultivators. If they were from Grand Heaven Alliance, then there was nothing to say, they would die either way. But if they were from Myriad Demon Ridge, then they would have a chance at life. While observing, Xiaoliang's eyes suddenly lit up as he called out to one of the Ninth Order cultivators, "Is it Zhou Yuntian of Burning Sky Valley, Brother Zhou?" Lu Yi and Li Baxian's faces turned solemn when they heard this. Things were getting troublesome. Burning Sky Valley was a force from Myriad Demon Ridge, and since Xiaoliang could recognize Zhou Yuntian's name, he obviously knew him. In other words, this group of people was most likely from Myriad Demon Ridge. After being called out, Zhou Yuntian glanced at Xiaoliang with a thoughtful look in his eyes. "Is Brother Xiaoliang of Wild Saber Sect, Brother Xia?" Xiaoliang nodded. "It is this Xia." From the conversation between the two, it was obvious that they knew each other, but even so, it was a disaster for Lu Yi and Li Baxian. The two of them dared to chase down a Ninth Order cultivator because Xiaoliang and Tan Sheng were seriously injured, but how could they be a match for so many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators? Even escaping was an extravagant hope. The other side had surrounded this place as soon as they arrived, and with so many people, the two had no room to escape. Any rash move would likely result in them being besieged. Lu Ye's thoughts turned sharply as he tried to think of a way to break out of this situation, but no matter how he thought about it, the current situation was simply a dead end. Xiaoliang and Zhou Yuntian exchanged a few words before Zhou Yuntian asked, "Why is Brother Xia in such a sorry state?" Xiaoliang sighed, "A tiger has fallen from grace, let's not talk about it. Brother Zhou, this one has a request." Zhou Yuntian gestured with his hand, "Please speak, Brother Xia." Xiaoliang looked coldly at Lu Yi and Li Baxian and said in a deep voice, "Brother Zhou, please kill these two. This one will be eternally grateful." His current physical condition was no longer suitable for fighting. His body was covered with new injuries and old injuries. Without a period of time to recuperate, it would be impossible for him to recover his strength. Although he did not want to rely on others, he had no better choice now that things had come to this. The main reason he came here was to avenge Yan Xing. As long as Li Baxian died, his wish would be fulfilled. As for whether Li Baxian died in his hands, he couldn't force it. "Oh." Zhou Yuntian chuckled and asked curiously, "I wonder what kind of enmity Brother Xia has with these two friends? They're actually fighting to the death here?" These people had also sensed that there was an intense battle going on here, which was why they were attracted over here. Otherwise, how could they coincidentally come to this place in the depths of the enormous Great Mang Mountains? Xiaoliang pointed at Li Baxian and coldly snorted, "Brother Zhou, look carefully, who is this person?" Only then did Zhou Yuntian look at Lu Yi and Li Baxian. His gaze swept over Lu Yi and did not pay much attention to him, but when he looked at Li Baxian, his expression changed and he asked in surprise, "You are Li Baxian?" Li Baxian did not know him, but he knew Li Baxian. Who didn't know the legend of the Spirit Stream battlefield? It could be said that if Li Baxian did not wear a mask, at least 5 out of 10 people would be able to recognize him, including Feng Yuechan. Therefore, when he saw Li Baxian, Zhou Yuntian was very surprised because he did not expect to see such a legend in the Cloud River battlefield. As soon as he spoke, the others also looked at Li Baxian. Someone nodded, "It really is Li Baxian. I saw him once in the Spirit Stream battlefield from afar. It's him. Didn't he and Feng Yuechan seal their cultivation and stay in the Spirit Stream battlefield? Why did they suddenly come to the Cloud River battlefield? Looking at his cultivation, he's already a 5th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. It seems that he has been in the Cloud River battlefield for some time. We haven't been in contact with the outside world for a long time and missed a lot of interesting things." This group of people did not avoid anyone and began whispering to each other, causing Lu Yi and Li Baxian to look at each other strangely. The two of them were ready to fight to the death. Admittedly, the two of them were no match for these people, but it was impossible for them to just sit and wait for death. Even if they could not escape, they had to drag a few people down with them before they died. Those 8th and 9th Order Masters were not easy to kill, so Tan Sheng and Xiaoliang would definitely die. But now, it seemed that this group of people did not have any malicious intent towards them. Lu Yi did not understand, and Li Baxian was also confused. He glanced at Zhou Yuntian and nodded, "Yes, I am Li Baxian. What advice does fellow Taoist have for me?" Zhou Yuntian showed a trace of fear on his face. "Fellow Taoist Li is too serious. I dare not give advice." When this Zhou was cultivating in the Spirit Stream battlefield, fellow Taoist Li was already famous. Although my cultivation is higher than fellow Taoist Li's, it is only because I entered the Cloud River battlefield earlier. If I entered the Cloud River battlefield at the same time, fellow Taoist Li would have already broken through to the True Lake realm. Fellow Taoist, please don't embarrass me. Zhou Yunqian's humble appearance made Li Baxian very uncomfortable. He wailed in his heart, "What the hell?" A myriad Demon Ridge cultivator not only did not show any hostility after recognizing me, he even acted so respectfully. When did I become so famous? He did not understand the situation, and neither did Tan Sheng and Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang frowned and said, "Brother Zhou, Li Baxian is from Pillheart sect." Zhou Yuntian nodded, "Of course I know. You know? If you know, why don't you hurry up and make a move?" Seeing that Xiao Yang was about to say something, Zhou Yuntian chuckled and raised his hand to stop him. "Brother Xia, I understand your intentions, but we are not divided into factions here. Since we are all here, we are all family. There is no need to mention Grand Heaven Alliance or Myriad Demon Ridge. I don't know what grudges the four of you have to fight here, but since we have bumped into each other, it must be fate. Let's forget about all the grudges in the past." These words left Lu Yi and the other three dumbfounded. Since ancient times, the Myriad Devil Ridge's Grand Heaven Alliance had always been at odds with each other. The cultivators of the two factions had constantly fought each other, and the blood feud between them could never be washed away. In the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield, regardless of whether they knew each other or not, as long as they were from different factions, they would have a reason to kill each other. Not to mention that Zhou Yuntian was only a 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Even if he was at the peak of the Spirit Sea Realm, he was not qualified to resolve the grudges between the two factions. What's more, not only were the four of them opposing each other, they also had private grudges. Otherwise, Lu Yi would not have chased them all the way here as if he wanted to kill them all. However, Zhou Yuntian's words came from the bottom of his heart. Furthermore, none of the surrounding cultivators showed any signs of rejection. Instead, they all nodded in agreement. Some even opened their mouths to advise the four of them to maintain harmony. The scene was indescribably strange. Xiao Yang and Tan Xing both looked at Zhou Yuntian as if they were looking at a madman. If it weren't for the fact that they were in poor condition, they would have cursed out loud. Although Li Baxian felt strange in his heart, he still nodded, "Yes, yes, we should make peace. Fighting and killing all the time, what a scandal." Although he was annoyed at these uninvited guests for ruining his and Lu Ye's plan to eliminate the root of the problem, the current situation was still better than being besieged by this group of people. When Xiao Yang called out Zhou Yuntian's name, Li Baxian had almost thought of his last words. "Fellow Taoist Li is still the sensible one." Zhou Yuntian looked at Li Baxian with a smile, a look of praise on his face. Li Baxian responded with a smile, looking cultured and refined. At that moment, the sound of something breaking through the air accompanied by a surge of spiritual energy came from the depths of the jungle. Zhou Yuntian looked up and his expression suddenly turned solemn as he shouted, "Senior has arrived." As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the 10+ cultivators turned solemn, and they bowed respectfully before assuming a posture of greeting. Their exaggerated reaction, coupled with Zhou Yuntian's mention of "senior," made Lu Yi and Li Baxian's expressions turn solemn. They faintly felt that the senior Zhou Yuntian mentioned was an extraordinary character. Otherwise, a group of Cloud River Realm cultivators wouldn't be so respectful. Looking in the direction of the sound of something breaking through the air, whether it was Lu Yi, Li Baxian, Tan Xing or Xiao Yang, all of them were shocked. They saw 4 figures flying through the air, and judging from the spiritual energy fluctuations coming from these 4, they were all Cloud River Realm 9th Order cultivators. If it were just 4 9th Order cultivators, it wouldn't be enough to surprise Lu Yi and the others. What surprised Lu Yi and the others was the posture of these 4 9th Order cultivators. The 4 of them were in front, left and right, carrying a fragrant imperial concubine as they floated over. There was a pink translucent curtain hanging on the bed. Through the curtain, one could vaguely see a graceful figure lying lazily on the bed. Before she arrived, her enchanting fragrance had already drifted with the wind, causing the battlefield that was originally filled with the smell of blood to be filled with a blurred aura. Lu Yi was at a loss. He really couldn't understand who the person on the fragrant imperial concubine was that she could make 4 Cloud River Realm 9th Order cultivators lower themselves to her. On the Cloud River battlefield, those who could cultivate to the 9th Order were all proud and arrogant people. Even if they were faced with someone stronger than them, they would at most call them Dao brother. However, from the figure vaguely visible through the curtain, it was obvious that the person on the fragrant imperial concubine was a woman. In the blink of an eye, the fragrant imperial concubine arrived above everyone's heads, and the 4 9th Order cultivators stood in the air with solemn expressions. As the mountain breeze blew, the fragrance lingering at the tip of their nose became even richer. This fragrance was something that Lu Yi had never smelled before. It was indescribable, but it had a wonderful power that could intoxicate anyone who smelled it. Anyone who smelled it couldn't help but want more. Welcome, Senior. Led by Zhou Yuntian, more than a dozen cultivators who had arrived first spoke in unison, their expressions extremely sincere. Lu Yi even noticed that a few of them were desperately inhaling, as if they wanted to absorb more of the fragrance. His face couldn't help but become dignified as he quietly glanced at Li Baxin, only to see that the other party's face was also filled with vigilance. The two senior brothers had obviously noticed the strangeness of the situation. To be continued. Chapter 572. Ever since he met Zhou Yuntian and the others, there was a strange aura everywhere. Zhou Yuntian was from Burning Heaven Valley and was from the Myriad Demon Ridge camp, so the other cultivators with him must also be from Myriad Demon Ridge. But even if these people recognized Li Baxin, they did not show the slightest hostility towards him. Even after Xiao Liang asked for help, they said that there were no camps here, boasting shamelessly that they could resolve the grievances between the two sides. At this moment, there was even an inexplicable venerable one that appeared out of nowhere, causing Zhou Yuntian and the others to be extremely respectful. As for the people carrying the imperial concubine bed, they were astonishingly 4 Cloud River Realm 9th Order cultivators. This senior, just who is he? What they saw in front of them was undoubtedly difficult for Lu Yi and Li Baxin to understand, while Xiao Liang and Tan Sheng were also full of doubts. Amidst the silence, a voice suddenly sounded, "Is there another newcomer?" The voice came from the imperial concubine's bed, languid and sweet, making those who heard it feel as if an invisible hand was tugging at their heartstrings. As this voice sounded, Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat, and an inexplicable desire welled up in his heart. Along with this voice, it was not just the heartbeat, but also the relaxation of one's mind. Although it was impossible to see what the woman on the bed looked like, just listening to her voice gave off an extremely warm feeling, making one want to be completely immersed in it. Lu Ye's heart was on high alert, and Li Baxin beside him also noticed that something was wrong, his sword-like brow furrowed as his eyes filled with vigilance. Looking at Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang over there, Li Baxin's expression became even more dignified. Because at this moment, both of them had blurred eyes as they stared at the figure on the imperial concubine's bed, their eyes filled with a fiery look. Tan Sheng and Xiao Liang were much stronger than Lu Yi and Xiao Liang, and both of them had extraordinary backgrounds, so logically speaking, it was impossible for them to be so weak. However, both of them were seriously injured and had consumed a lot of spirit qi and concentration, so their performance at this moment was much worse than Lu Yi and Xiao Liang. Zhou Yuntian respectfully replied, "Reporting to Senior, these 4 fellow Taoists seem to have some grievances and were fighting here. We have already stopped them." On the fragrant imperial concubine couch, the lazy voice sounded again, "These 2 9th Order realms aren't bad." Then Lu Yi felt someone's gaze pass through the curtain and land on him. "These 2 are a little lacking." Zhou Yuntian immediately said, "Senior, one of these 2 is fellow Taoist Li Baxin, a legend of the spirit stream battlefield. Although his cultivation isn't high, his potential is limitless. If he can break through to the 9th Order Cloud River realm in the future, he will be able to help Senior achieve his long-cherished wish. As for the one beside him, subordinate doesn't recognize him, but since he can accompany Li Baxin, he can't be mediocre. If that's the case." His honor lightly muttered, seemingly thinking about something. Very quickly he made a decision, "Then let's bring them all back." Yes. The conversation between Zhou Yuntian and his honor was transmitted into Lu Ye's ears, causing Lu Ye's mood to become indescribably heavy. Previously, Lu Yi only felt that the situation was somewhat strange, and there were many things that were hard to understand, but right now there were even more things that were hard to understand. Because Zhou Yuntian, a mere 9th Order cultivator, actually claimed to be a subordinate in front of that venerable. This venerable? Who exactly was she? From the looks of the situation, it wasn't just Zhou Yuntian, but all the cultivators here were subordinates of that venerable. What kind of magical means did she have to make so many proud and arrogant cultivators follow her orders? Suddenly, a large amount of pink mist spread out from the imperial concubine's bed and swept towards Lu Yi and the others. Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed down on the mountain coiling saber, his spirit energy surging, while Li Baxian's flying swords were also hovering around him. However, before the 2 of them could do anything, auras from all directions firmly locked onto them, causing their movements to instantly freeze. Zhou Yuntian said, "Fellow Taoist Li, please don't be impatient. His honor has no ill intentions towards you, he just wants to invite you back as guests. Although his words were pleasant to hear, if Li Baxian and Lu Yi really dared to resist, they would definitely be suppressed by these people. In such a situation, how could the two of them be opponents? Even escaping would be an extravagant hope. Lu Yi and Li Baxian looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. This time they really were meat on someone's chopping block. The pink mist swept over and enveloped a large area. The mist was filled with the intoxicating fragrance that they smelled before. Lu Yi immediately noticed the abnormality in his talent tree. He immersed his divine sense into it and saw a gray mist ignite on his talent tree. This pink mist was poisonous, but the toxicity wasn't too strong, so the talent tree didn't react much. Just as he was about to urge his spirit energy to protect himself, Zhou Yunqian's voice sounded again, "Fellow Taoists, please don't resist." His voice wasn't as gentle as before and was now a bit colder. Clearly, if Lu Yi and the others resisted, these people would take action to suppress them. Lu Yi quietly stood in place, guessing what the pink mist was for. The toxicity wasn't strong, so these people clearly didn't have any intention of killing them. Since they didn't want to kill them and said they wanted to invite them back as guests, then the use of this mist. Lu Yi turned his head to look, only to see Xiao Liang and Tan Xing suddenly slump to the ground unconscious. Li Baxian, who was beside him, also staggered and then fell to the ground. Immediately after Li Baxian, Lu Yi directly fell to the ground. Even Hu Pe, who was squatting on his shoulder, also fell into a deep sleep. "Bring all of them back." His honor's soft voice sounded once again. "Yes." Zhou Yuntian replied. Immediately after, Lu Yi felt someone grab him by the clothes around his waist and lift him up. Like the wind and lightning, he quietly opened his eyes and looked around. He saw that Hu Pe was also being held in the other hand of the person who was lifting him. They went all the way to the depths of Taimong Mountain, and only after about half an hour did they show signs of descending. Lu Yi pretended to be unconscious and didn't dare to open his eyes. He didn't know where exactly he was, but he heard many people greeting him, and there were also many powerful life fluctuations around him. There seemed to be a lot of cultivators gathered here. The sound of a door being pushed open sounded, and a moment later, Lu Yi felt himself being brought into a room and placed on a bed. Immediately after, Zhou Yunqian's voice sounded, "You all go rest, I'll stay here and keep watch." Someone replied, "Then we'll have to trouble Brother Zhou. It's a small matter." The others retreated one after another, leaving only Zhou Yuntian here to keep watch. Lu Yi laid down motionlessly and calmly sensed his surroundings. He could hear several even breathing sounds around him. Presumably, it was Li Baxian and others who were unconscious. After waiting for a moment, the door was pushed open again, and that Zhou Yuntian respectfully said, "Your Honor." A fragrant wind blew over. It was the same intoxicating fragrance that Lu Yi smelled before. Then Lu Yi felt that his honor was standing not far away from him. He didn't know what his honor was busy with, but Lu Yi clearly felt a strange energy fluctuation. A moment later, a soft muffled groan sounded. That sound seemed to be coming from Xiao Liang. His honor moved his feet, and that strange energy fluctuation fluctuated again. A moment later, another muffled groan sounded, and this time it was Tan Xing's voice. He wasn't killing people because Lu Yi could sense that Tan Xing and Xiao Liang were still alive. This made him very curious what kind of method his honor was using. Very soon, it was Li Baxian's turn, and just like the previous two, he also let out a muffled groan. The fragrance lingering around the tip of Lu Ye's nose became a lot richer, and Lu Yi felt that his honor had already walked to his side. In the next moment, two warm and soft fingers were placed on his forehead. That strange energy fluctuation fluctuated again, and Lu Yi instantly felt that his mind was slightly impacted. Immediately after, something inexplicable seemed to have appeared in his mind. Involuntarily, he also let out a muffled groan. After that, his honor's voice was filled with traces of weakness as he instructed Zhou Yuntian, "When they wake up, have them wash up and bring them to see me. They stink so bad." Zhou Yuntian's voice was filled with a trace of weakness. "Yes." Zhou Yuntian replied respectfully. The sound of footsteps quickly faded away. It was clear that his honor had left. At this time, Lu Yi was immersed in inspecting his talent tree. While inspecting, a large amount of gray mist ignited on the talent tree, but very soon that gray mist completely disappeared, and the talent tree also returned to normal. Just what kind of inexplicable method did his honor use on me? Lu Yi recalled what happened just now. When his honor used that method, his mind was obviously impacted greatly, and something inexplicable seemed to have appeared in his mind. It shouldn't be poison, but for the talent tree to have a reaction, it means that it is something that has invaded my body and is harmful to me. Thus, no matter what it is, it has already been burned clean by the talent tree and I won't be affected at all. I have the talent tree but fourth senior brother doesn't. In other words, no matter what kind of method His Honor used, fourth senior brother has already been affected. Not only fourth senior brother was affected, Tan Xing and Xiao Yang were affected as well. I have to be a bit more careful when I go back. If my performance is different from fourth senior brother and the others, it is very likely that I will be exposed. Just when he was thinking about this, suddenly footsteps sounded out and soon after someone said, "Brother Zhou, I heard that Li Baxian is here?" Zhou Yuntian, who was left behind to guard the talent tree, said with a smile, "You guys sure are well informed. We have just returned and you guys have already heard about it?" The person who spoke said, "Brother Zhao, did you guys say that Li Baxian is here? Isn't that right?" The next moment, Lu Yi felt a lot of people gather around him, and one after another, voices rang out. "It really is Li Baxian. Brother Zhou has made a great contribution this time. Being able to gather such a talent for His Honor, he will definitely be rewarded. It is our honor to be able to serve His Honor, there is no need for any reward." Yes. But I heard that Li Baxian is only at the 5th order Cloud River realm now. Isn't his cultivation a bit low? Low cultivation doesn't mean anything right now. He is Li Baxian. If he is allowed to grow to the 9th order, none of us will be his opponent. Chapter 573. Lu Yi had long known of his fourth senior brother's fame, and this time he truly felt it. Strictly speaking, they were now considered captives, but even so, Li Baxian's arrival had attracted many cultivators who had heard of him for a long time. In contrast, Tan Xing and Xiao Yang, whose cultivation bases were higher than Li Baxian's, were ignored. The group chattered for a long time before Zhou Yuntian said, all right, His Honor has already planted a secret technique in them, so they'll all be on the same side in the future. There will be plenty of opportunities to communicate, so let's disperse." The noisy crowd left one after another. Zhou Yuntian closed the door and quietly guarded the room. Only the steady breathing of the unconscious cultivators could be heard in the room. Various thoughts flashed through Lu Ye's mind. Judging from His Honor's actions and the meaning of Zhou Yuntian's words, His Honor had indeed planted some kind of secret technique on them. He more or less understood how His Honor had controlled these cultivators. It was because of that unique secret technique. Thinking back to what he had felt before, Lu Yi was shocked because from what he had felt just now, the secret technique His Honor had used was very likely related to the soul. When His Honor had used the secret technique, he had felt some impact on his mind, and many inexplicable things had appeared in his mind. However, because his innate skill tree could burn things that had invaded his body and were harmful to him, he was not affected by the secret technique, which made it difficult for him to detect the specific effects of the secret technique. But, a secret technique of the soul. Was that possible? That was a skill that could only be performed by Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. Only those who had reached the Spirit Sea Realm were qualified to use things related to the spirit. Everyone had a soul, and as their cultivation increased, their soul would also grow stronger. However, before reaching the Divine Sea Realm, cultivators were unable to actively use the power of their soul, let alone use a secret technique of the soul. Take Lu Yi for example. Because he had refined a lot of soul-cleansing water, his soul was much stronger than cultivators of the same cultivation level, so his mind was more stable. When faced with situations that impacted his mind or soul, he had a natural advantage. For example, if an ordinary Cloud River tier cultivator were to die in the Mirage Realm, they would definitely have a headache for 1 or 2 days. However, Lu Yi would recover very quickly. This was the benefit of having a powerful soul, but even so, he did not have the ability to activate his own soul power. His cultivation base was still far from that level. However, His Honor was able to use a divine soul secret technique. It was also because of that soul secret technique that Her Excellency was able to control so many cultivators under her command, making those cultivators treat her with great respect and even worship her. Lu Yi was getting more and more curious about the identity of the Venerable One. Could it be that some divine ocean realm cultivator had forced his way into the Cloudy River battlefield? But that didn't seem right either. On the Spirit Stream battlefield, powerful cultivators could use their merit points to force their way in. He had never heard of such a thing happening on the Cloud River battlefield. The cultivators who could enter the Cloudy River battlefield had always been at the Cloudy River tier. Furthermore, even if a Divine Sea Realm cultivator were to force their way into the Cloud River battlefield, they would still be suppressed by the balance of the heavens. If they were to move here, they would not be able to use the Soul Secret technique. More importantly, why would a Divine Sea Realm cultivator come here and use the Soul Secret technique to control a group of Cloudy River tier cultivators? It couldn't be a child's play. Thinking about it this way, Lu Yi felt that the Venerable One was most likely not a Divine Sea Realm cultivator. The more he thought about it, the more he did not understand. Lu Yi simply stopped thinking about it. He was in an awkward situation. He could use his talent tree to dispel the effects of the Soul Secret technique, but his fourth senior brother could not. Now that he was trapped here, although there was no danger for the time being, the Venerable One had gathered so many cultivators under her command. Her scheme was definitely not small. Who knew when danger would descend? He made up his mind. He definitely could not reveal that he had dispelled the Soul Secret technique. Otherwise he would definitely die. He waited quietly. About 2 hours later, the people around him woke up one after another and sat up. Lu Yi also opened his eyes and sat up straight. Just as he was about to observe the reaction of his fourth senior brother and imitate him, he suddenly felt an impact of spiritual energy, followed by the sound of swords. Accompanied by the shouts of Tan Sheng and Xiao Yang, the scene instantly became a mess. It was Li Baxin who saw Tan Sheng and Xiao Yang next to him and brazenly attacked. Lu Yi also hurriedly pulled out his mountain coiling saber. Spiritual power surged around his body and flames wrapped around the saber. Stop! Zhou Yuntian, who had been guarding here all this time, had a change in expression. He rushed over in a flash, his powerful ninth order cultivation clearly displayed. The four figures were all pushed aside. Zhou Yuntian's face was filled with anger. He looked around at the four people who were hostile to each other and coldly said, "I don't care what kind of deep grudges you have before, nor do I care which camp you come from. Since you are here, you are family from now on. Don't mention any grievances." When he first appeared, he also said something similar, but at that time, no one took his words seriously. Now that he said it again, Lu Yi naturally ignored him. But when he looked at Xiao Yang and Tan Sheng's pale faces, he found that they both had awkward expressions. Turning his head, evenly Baxin's brow furrowed. Zhou Yuntian coldly said, "What senior hates the most is to see his own family fight. This is the first time. You didn't understand the rules, so that's understandable, but if you do it again, there will be no mercy." Pausing for a moment, he shouted, "These are the rules set by senior. Everyone must abide by them." As soon as these words came out, Tan Sheng and Xiao Yang both showed looks of panic. Withdrawing their auras, they lowered their heads slightly. Yes. Li Baxin also put away his flying sword and nodded, "Understood." The words senior seemed to have some kind of magical power to them at this moment, making them obedient. Zhou Yuntian coldly said, "Since you understand, then make peace. I hope you can really coexist like brothers in the future." Xiao Yang was silent for a moment before cupping his fists to Lu Yi and Li Baxin. "I have offended you many times before, please forgive me." Li Baxin politely returned the gesture. "Brother Xia is too serious. There is no need to mention the past. In the future we will all be subordinates of senior, so I hope Brother Xia and Brother Tan can take care of us." Of course. Lu Yi stood to the side and watched coldly with a heavy heart. Only now did he realize how terrifying that soul secret technique was. No matter what it was enough to distort a person's mind. Zhou Yuntian smiled and nodded with satisfaction. "That's right. Since you are here, you will be a family from now on, a family. Come with me, senior wants to see you, but before that, you have to wash up and change your clothes." Saying so, he turned around and left. Lu Yi and the others quickly followed. Walking out of the house, Lu Yi looked around and saw that this place should be a valley. The scenery was not as beautiful as Return to Heaven Valley, and the area was not large. However, there were all kinds of buildings in the valley, and there were many traces of cultivators coming and going. The climate in the valley was pleasant, and there were many peach trees planted here. At this time it was the season of peach blossoms, and pink peach blossoms were in full bloom, filling the air with the fragrance of peach blossoms. As Zhou Yuntian walked forward, they met cultivators from time to time, and some of them even curiously looked at Lu Yi and the others. After walking for a short while, they arrived in front of a pool. The water in the pool was flowing so clear that one could see the bottom. Under Zhou Yuntian's instructions, the four took off their clothes and entered the pool to wash their bodies. Lu Yi never expected that the four people who were fighting to the death before would be happily living together in the same pool. Moreover, Li Baxin, Tan Xing, and Xiao Liang were talking and laughing, as if everything that happened before was just a misunderstanding. Tan Xing and Xiao Liang's injuries were very serious. After all, they were besieged by a pack of wolves and were able to survive because they were strong enough. In the end, if they had not escaped in time, they would have died in the spiritual land. Not long after, the four finished bathing and put on their clothes. Lu Yi and Li Baxin looked refreshed while Xiao Liang and Tan Xing's faces were still pale. The injuries the two of them had suffered before would not be healed without a period of recuperation. Everything was ready, and under Zhou Yuntian's lead, they went deeper into the valley. They stopped in front of a large hall. There was a woman standing quietly at the entrance of the hall. She was tall and beautiful, and her beautiful eyes were as bright as the stars. Her gaze swept across Lu Yi and the others and soon fixed on Li Baxin. She pursed her lips and smiled. "Is he Li Baxin?" Zhou Yuntian smiled and replied, "Yes, he is Li Baxin." The woman looked at Li Baxin from head to toe and nodded slightly, just like the rumors, handsome and dignified. Li Baxin smiled and bowed. "Fellow Taoist is too kind." The woman covered her mouth and smiled. "I thought Li Baxin was an arrogant and cold person, but I misunderstood. Fellow Taoist Li, I am also a sword cultivator. If you have time, I would like to ask fellow Taoist Li for advice." Li Baxin said, "I wouldn't dare to give advice. Fellow Taoist cultivation is far above mine. You should be the one giving me advice." The woman wanted to say something, but Zhou Yuntian coughed lightly. "Junior sister Yu, His Excellency is waiting for them." The woman surnamed Yu's expression immediately became serious and she moved aside. "Bring them in." Zhou Yuntian nodded slightly and led Lu Yi and the others to the front of the hall and shouted, "Zhou Yuntian requests an audience with His Excellency. I have brought the newcomers. Come in." His Excellency's unique lazy voice came from inside the hall. Only then did Zhou Yuntian step forward and push open the door, and led Lu Yi and the others into the hall. As soon as they entered the hall, the tip of their nose smelled a unique and intoxicating fragrance. The furnishings in the hall were pink, and even the interior of the hall was filled with a pink aura, giving off a hazy and ambiguous feeling. At the top of the hall there was a low couch. On the low couch, a graceful figure was lazily lying on her side. Beside her there were a few women who were either squatting or standing. Some were gently fanning her with a fan, some were massaging her legs and shoulders, and some were peeling berries and feeding them to her. The figure lying on the low couch was undoubtedly His Excellency. Chapter 574. In the main hall, Zhou Yuntian led Lu Ye's group forward and stood 5 meters away from the couch. He lowered his head and said respectfully, "Zhou Yuntian greets Senior, the newcomer has been brought." Saying so, he turned his head and gave Lu Ye's group a meaningful glance. Li Baxin and the other two hurriedly cupped their fists and saluted. Lu Yi also followed suit and said in unison, "Greetings, Senior." The lazy voice sounded again. Lu Yi secretly raised his eyes to look, and when he saw who it was, he couldn't help but be stunned. Although this senior had appeared in the mountain forest before, there was a curtain separating them at that time, so Lu Yi didn't know what the other party looked like. He only knew that the other party was a woman. At this moment, without the curtain separating them, he could naturally see the other party's face clearly. To be honest, since cultivating until now, Lu Yi had seen many women, and many of them had outstanding appearances. Among female cultivators, there were no particularly ugly ones. Most of them had delicate features. At the very least they were of average appearance, and there were also quite a few who were peerless beauties. The main reason was naturally that cultivators had spirit qi, which could preserve their beauty. But Lu Yi had never seen such a beautiful face. There was almost no flaw on that face. It was so perfect that it didn't seem to belong to this world. It wasn't that kind of flawless beauty, but a kind of indescribable flirtatiousness. Especially the small mole under the corner of the other party's eye, it added a different kind of charm. Such a face undoubtedly had a great visual impact on the men in the world. Coupled with the extremely revealing clothes on the upper body, a large amount of snow-white skin was exposed. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was offensive to public morals, and it made people's blood boil. This kind of appearance, this kind of figure, even if she didn't rely on the mysterious soul secret technique, she was qualified to control most men in the world, making them willing to sell their lives for her. What made Lu Yi particularly concerned was not her appearance, but the aura coming from her body. He had already felt that the aura of this senior was a little strange before, and now it was even clearer. The power flowing in her body was not the same as normal spirit qi. It was more like demonic qi. Lu Yi and Hoopa spent a lot of time together, so his perception of demonic qi was still very sharp. If that's the case, then his honor isn't a human but a demon? Moreover, she was definitely one of those demonic beasts that possessed some special abilities. Otherwise, there was no reason for her to be able to unleash a secret technique that could control a cultivator's divine sense as a Cloud River tier cultivator. This explained everything. Orthodox cultivators didn't have the ability to use divine sense secret techniques in the Cloud River tier, but beasts were different. Some powerful beasts were born with abilities that ordinary people couldn't match. As if sensing Lu Ye's gaze, his honor's bewitching beautiful eyes swept over. When his honor's eyes met Lu Ye's eyes, the corners of his honor's mouth slightly curled up and revealed a playful smile. She had seen such gazes many times before, so she was not surprised, but Lu Ye's boldness did surprise her. Because of her soul secret technique, basically everyone who saw her for the first time would be in awe. Even a cultivator like Zhou Yuntian, who had followed her for many years, only dared to sneak a peek at her occasionally. He had never dared to stare at her so openly. Lu Yi was the first person to stare at her like this during their first meeting. When their eyes met, Lu Ye's expression suddenly changed, because his honor's pair of beautiful eyes gave him a feeling that they had turned into a bottomless abyss, causing his consciousness to sink uncontrollably. Shocked, Lu Yi hurriedly lowered his head. Oh! His honor let out a surprised sound. She was a little surprised that Lu Yi could escape her gaze. She originally wanted to teach Lu Yi a little lesson, but she didn't expect that Lu Ye's mind was strong because of this. However, this was a good thing for her. The stronger the cultivators under her command were, the more power she could borrow. After giving Lu Yi a deep look, she no longer paid any attention to him. Everyone introduce yourselves. His honor said lazily. Zhou Yuntian whispered from the side. His honor wants to understand your strength. If you have any special abilities, tell her everything. Don't hide anything. Brother Xia, let's start with you. Xia Liang immediately cupped his fists and shouted, Wild Blade Sect Xia Liang, 9th Order Cloud River Realm, Armament Cultivator. As for special abilities, this Xia's heart is the saber. I have no other abilities. Zhou Yuntian explained, His honor, Wild Blade Sect is a first-grade sect. Brother Xia was once in the top 10 of the Spirit Stream list. His 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivation isn't something an ordinary 9th Order Realm cultivator can compare to. Correct. His honor said indifferently. Zhou Yuntian reminded, Brother Tan. Tan Xing hurriedly said, New Moon Sect's Tan Xing, 9th Order Cloud River Realm, Armament Cultivator. Zhou Yuntian continued, Brother Tan was once in the Spirit Stream list. New Moon Sect is a third-grade sect. In the entire 9 continents, it can be considered a big sect. His honor didn't say anything. Obviously, he wasn't as interested in Tan Xing as Xia Liang. When it was Li Baxian's turn, he said, Pill Heart Sect's Li Baxian, 5th Order Cloud River Realm, Sword Cultivator. Zhou Yuntian said, In the Spirit Stream battlefield, Li Baxian was a legendary figure. He was also the only person who was able to occupy the top 10 of the Spirit Stream list with a Heaven 8th Order cultivation for more than 10 years. I heard that Brother Li's spirit aperture was broken in a fight with someone. Now that he has reached the Cloud River Realm, Brother Li's spirit aperture must have been repaired, right? Yes. Fortunately, little junior brother spent a huge amount of money to buy an aperture supplement pill. The broken spirit aperture has been repaired. Congratulations. His honor, although Brother Li's current cultivation isn't high in terms of potential, none of us can compare to him. Furthermore, he is a sword cultivator. If he can reach the 9th Order Cloud River Realm in the future, he will definitely be a first-class master. Very good. His honor's voice was filled with joy. When you return, give him some cultivation items. Let him cultivate well and work hard to improve his cultivation. Zhou Yuntian immediately turned to Li Baxian. Why aren't you thanking his honor for the reward? Li Baxian immediately said, Thank you, honor. Zhou Yuntian looked at Lu Yi. Lu Yi also cupped his fists and said, Blue Blood Sect's Lu Yi, 4th Order Cloud River Realm, Weapon Cultivator. After a pause, he said, Subordinate is proficient in the Tao of Spirit Runes, the Tao of Spirit Arrays, and also knows a thing or two about the Tao of Spirit Runes. Zhou Yuntian had said before that if Lu Yi had any special skills, he should tell him everything and not hide anything. Although Lu Yi didn't want to say these things were known to everyone including Xia Liang and Tan Xing. So, even if he didn't want to, he had to say it to avoid any clues. Zhou Yuntian was stunned. Brother Lu has cultivated so many sects? I have dabbled a little, Lu Yi said modestly. Amazing, amazing. Zhou Yuntian revealed a happy look. Honor, we are lacking such talents right now, especially in the Tao of Spirit arrays. Brother Xie has been complaining that he doesn't have anyone he can use. I think we can send Brother Lu to Brother Xie's side to assist him. You can decide on this matter yourself, there is no need to ask me, His Honor replied faintly. Yes. I'm tired, all of you can leave. His Honor waved his hand. Zhou Yuntian immediately said respectfully, subordinate will take his leave. After saying this he gave Lu Yi and the others a look, led them to bow and leave. After leaving the main hall, they followed Zhou Yuntian and soon arrived at the side of the valley. There were many loft-like buildings standing there, and the distance between each building was about 100 feet. In total there were about 100 or so buildings. Zhou Yuntian said, fellow Taoists, choose your own residence. In the future, everyone will be staying in Immortal Fox Valley. We are all family, so there is no need to be too reserved. There is only one thing that everyone needs to remember. Speaking up to here, his expression became extremely serious, and his voice also became low. After entering Immortal Fox Valley, everyone will have to cut off their past. From now on, you are all people of Immortal Fox Valley. Don't contact your masters and friends anymore, and you are not allowed to reveal the existence of Immortal Fox Valley to outsiders. If there is anyone who violates this order, kill without mercy. Yes. Lu Yi and the others nodded, indicating that they understood. Apart from this, there are no rules in Immortal Fox Valley. Apart from going out to recruit talents, there is basically nothing else to do. If you want to cultivate, then cultivate. He raised his hand and pointed at the lofts. The doors on the second floor are closed and they are all occupied. The doors are wide open and they are all unoccupied. Feel free to do as you please. After saying this, he exchanged battlefield marks with Lu Yi and the others, telling them to contact him if there was anything, and then left. After Zhou Yuntian left, Tan Xing and Xia Liang went together to find their own residence. Lu Yi and Li Baxin also went in the same direction. Along the way, Lu Yi observed Li Baxin's expression and found that he looked normal, and there was no sign of anything wrong. He tentatively said, fourth senior brother. What about senior sister Feng? Zhou Yuntian said before that since they entered this Immortal Fox Valley, they must cut off all ties with their past, and they must not reveal the existence of this place to anyone. Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan were childhood sweethearts, and they had been cultivating and living together for so many years. Suddenly being brought here and having to cut off all ties with their past, Lu Yi wanted to know what choice Li Baxin would make. Hearing this, Li Baxin sighed, since His Excellency has given the order, then we can only obey. Yuechan? Although she will be sad, she will be fine after a long time. Lu Ye's heart turned cold, but he still said, that's true. He raised his hand and pointed at the two lofts in front of them. Senior brother, let's choose these two. You and I live closer and it will be easier for us to look after each other. Li Baxin nodded happily, okay. Then the two of them each chose a loft. Lu Yi chose a loft on the right, and after walking in and looking around he found that there were traces of people living here, and there were even some things left behind. However, the original owner should not have returned for a long time, as the loft was covered in dust. He didn't know what the situation of the original owner of this loft was, but from the current situation the original owner of this loft was most likely dead, otherwise they wouldn't have stayed away for so long. This so-called Immortal Fox Valley seemed to be peaceful, and everyone lived in harmony. Under His Excellency's sole secret technique, everyone was able to unite as one, but now it seemed that this place was not so safe. Chapter 575. Moreover, the name Fox Immortal Valley caught Lu Ye's attention. He took out the 10-point map and compared it with his current location. There were no special markings on the 10-point map. In other words, the existence of this valley was not recorded on the 10-point map. In that case, the name Fox Immortal Valley was unique to the cultivators here. He had previously speculated that the senior was a monster, but it was difficult to determine what kind of monster he was unless he revealed his true form. Fox Immortal Valley was undoubtedly a good hint. A fox monster? Could be explained. Legend had it that when a fox monster took human form, the men would be handsome and the women would be seductive. However, the senior was able to use a soul secret technique with the strength of a Cloud River Realm cultivator. He was obviously not an ordinary fox monster, and most likely had some extremely special bloodline. Take Hoopa for example. There were countless tiger-type monster beasts in the world, but other than Hoopa, there had never been a tiger-type monster beast that could transform into a nightmare spirit. Hoopa had the bloodline of the white tiger, one of the four symbols Saint Beast, and transforming into a nightmare spirit was its innate ability. No matter what, the senior was not easy to deal with. Now that he was in Fox Immortal Valley, Lu Yi had the innate skill tree and was not affected by the senior's secret technique. However, Li Baxin's mind was controlled and he was dead set on following the senior. Lu Yi could not take him away. Even Feng Yuechan, who had lived with him for many years, could be seen how overbearing the soul secret technique was. If Lu Yi forcefully took Li Baxin away, he would only expose the fact that he could not be controlled. At that time, all the cultivators in Fox Immortal Valley would come after him. There were as many masters here as there were clouds, and Cloud River Realm 8th or 9th order cultivators were everywhere. If he really went that far, the consequences would be unpredictable. He secretly rejoiced that Feng Yuechan had stayed behind to take care of Giant Armor when it was injured. If she had followed him, they would definitely be wiped out. Now that Feng Yuechan and Giant Armor were still in the Spirit Land, Lu Yi at least had a backup and would not be alone. There was a place called Immortal Fox Valley in the Cloud River battlefield that had never been discovered by anyone before. Firstly, this place was located in the depths of the Great Mang Mountains. It was very difficult for ordinary cultivators to reach this place. Secondly, it was because of the rules of Immortal Fox Valley. All cultivators who entered this place had to sever their past. Under the Supreme One's secret soul technique, no one would be able to spread the news of this place. In this way, even if a cultivator went missing for a long time and couldn't be contacted, his sect and friends wouldn't be able to find him. At most, they could only determine whether he was alive or dead through the battlefield imprint. If Lu Yi wanted to take Li Baxin away from this place, he would have to first break the Divine Sense secret technique that His Excellency had planted. Otherwise, Li Baxin would not obediently submit. However, Divine Sense secret techniques involved the power of one's Divine Sense, so how could Lu Yi, who was only at the Cloud River tier, possibly break them? Unless his honor dispels the secret technique himself, that would be impossible as well. Or kill her. In comparison, killing her was the only feasible option. No matter how strong she was only at the Cloud River tier. And from what he saw of her today, she was not an overlord-level existence. In other words, her strength was at most at the peak of the Cloud River tier. Thus, although killing her was difficult, it was not impossible. The difficult part was how to deal with the cultivators of Immortal Fox Valley. Lu Yi wasn't too sure how many cultivators were gathered here, but from the moment he met Zhou Yuntian, he had seen more than 30 cultivators. And this was only what he had seen, so there were definitely many more that he had not seen. What did this fox spirit want to do by gathering so many cultivators? After pondering for a long time, Lu Yi had a vague plan in his heart. No matter what, it was not wrong to first investigate the strength of Immortal Fox Valley. Only after he understood everything about Immortal Fox Valley could he deal with the current situation more effectively. He had to first contact Feng Yuechan and Giant Armor. He and Li Baxin had chased after Xiao Liang and Tan Sheng, and there had been no news of them for so long. Presumably, Feng Yuechan was already anxious. Li Baxin could not send a message to reply, so he could only contact her himself. Moreover, when he pretended to be unconscious, he had already received a message, but it was inconvenient for him to check it. If he guessed correctly, it should be Feng Yuechan. Raising his hand to tap on the battlefield imprint, Lu Yi calmly checked it. Sure enough, it was Feng Yuechan who had sent a message. Moreover, there were several messages asking about his and Li Baxin's situation. Senior Sister Feng. Almost as soon as the message was sent, Feng Yuechan replied. Clearly she had been waiting. Junior brother Lu Yu finally replied. How's the situation over there? Are you injured? Where's my senior brother? Why hasn't he replied to my message? Through the battlefield imprint, Feng Yuechan could confirm that Lu Yi and Li Baxin were still alive, but they had not replied, so she could not help but have a bad feeling. Senior brother and I are safe and sound, you don't have to worry. However, we've encountered some things over here, so I'm afraid we won't be able to return to the spiritual land for a while. Where are you? I'll come and find you. You can't come. Lu Yi hurriedly refused, and then told Feng Yuechan about what happened to him and Li Baxin, telling her about their current situation. Feng Yuechan was obviously greatly shocked. You're saying that senior brother's mind has been controlled by a fox demon? That's just my guess. I haven't seen her in person, so I can't say for sure. However, it's true that his mind has been controlled. Senior brother's current behavior is no different from usual. The only thing is that he is affected by the soul secret technique and obeys the fox demon's orders. I can't force him to leave. Damned beast. Feng Yuechan cursed. Although she was curious as to why Lu Yi was not affected by the soul secret technique, she did not ask. After all, if Lu Yi was really affected, he would not be talking to her about these things. That fox demon has a rule. Once you enter Fox Immortal Valley, you must cut off your past. So, senior sister Feng, if you send a message to senior brother will not reply to you. However, to avoid being exposed, please pretend that you don't know and continue to contact senior brother. I understand, Feng Yuechan replied. Soon she sent another message. After hearing what you said, I remember something. A few years ago, a Cloud River Realm cultivator from Pillheart sect went missing in Mount Taimong. Although he was confirmed to be alive through the battlefield imprint, no matter who sent the message, there was no reply. The sect thought that he had encountered an accident. Although they sent people into Mount Taimong to search for him many times, they found nothing. Now, it seems that the missing person has most likely fallen into Fox Immortal Valley. What's that person's name? Lu Yi hurriedly asked. If that was the case, that person was definitely still in Fox Immortal Valley. He's already dead. A year after he went missing, the battlefield imprint disappeared. Lu Ye's heart turned cold. He was even more certain that Fox Immortal Valley was not a peaceful place. Moreover, judging from the situation in Fox Immortal Valley, Pillheart sect was not the only sect that had lost cultivators. However, because there was no way to contact the missing cultivators, the situation in Fox Immortal Valley had never been exposed. Although Lu Yi did not know how many cultivators had wandered into Fox Immortal Valley, it was definitely not a small number. There were only a total of 100 pavilions that could be used for living. Even if each person occupied a pavilion, there would only be slightly more than 100 people. Where did all the cultivators go? There should be some dangers that he had never seen before. Junior brother Lu, you must be careful over there. Take good care of your senior brother. If there are any abnormalities, you must send me a message. I know. Don't worry, senior sister Feng. By the way, how's Giant Armor's condition? Junior brother Giant Armor's physique is strong. His injuries are not serious, but they look a little scary. He's fine now. That's good. He exchanged a few more words with Feng Yuechan before ending the transmission. Sitting upright on the bed, Lu Ye's eyes flickered. If he wanted to kill that fox demon, it was not enough to rely on his strength alone. Perhaps he could get Feng Yuechan to contact some people and have them be on standby at the spiritual land? However, Lu Yi quickly dismissed this idea. There were quite a number of cultivators in Fox Immortal Valley. If he really wanted to contact some helpers, he did not know how many would be needed. Furthermore, there was a wolf pack at the spiritual land. When the time came, he only had to get Feng Yuechan and Giant Armor to bring the wolf pack out. There was no need for him to go through the trouble of finding any helpers. Therefore, what he had to do was to integrate into Fox Immortal Valley as much as possible and find out the strength of Fox Immortal Valley, especially the strength of that fox demon. If he wanted to kill her, he had to at least figure out how capable she was. After making up his mind, Lu Yi stood up and began to tidy up his house. There were many things left behind by the original owner here, so he naturally had to clean them up. After tidying up quickly, Lu Yi walked out of the small building and set up some simple formations outside. He also went to Li Baxian's residence next door and set up some formations for him as well. The night passed peacefully as he cultivated. The next day, while Lu Yi was cultivating, he heard the conversation between Li Baxian and Zhou Yuntian from the small building next door. Zhou Yuntian was here to deliver a reward. When he met the fox demon yesterday, the fox demon undoubtedly valued Li Baxian's talent very highly and specifically ordered Zhou Yuntian to reward him with some cultivation resources. Zhou Yuntian naturally did not dare to disobey the fox demon's orders. Lu Yi did not know what he had sent, but since it was cultivation resources, it should be either spirit stones or spirit pills. Not long after, Zhou Yuntian walked out from Li Baxian's place and went straight to Lu Ye's place. He called out, "Fellow Taoist Lu, are you here?" Lu Yi stood up and walked out of his room. He cupped his fists and said, "Fellow Taoist Zhou." Zhou Yuntian chuckled and asked with concern, "How is it? Are you used to living here?" Lu Yi replied, "It's quiet and empty to my liking." "That's good." Zhou Yuntian nodded and did not beat around the bush. He said bluntly, "You said yesterday that you have some attainments in formations?" "That's right, but what kind of formations do I need to set up?" "That's not it. It's just that although there are many fellow Taoists in the valley, The only one who cultivates formations is fellow Taoist Xie. So, all the formations in the valley are under his charge. Since fellow Taoist Lu has some attainments in formations, his honor wants you to be fellow Taoist Xie's assistant and help him maintain the formations. Lu Yi naturally would not refuse this kind of thing. He could use this opportunity to familiarize himself with the situation in Fox Immortal Valley. He nodded, all right. Chapter 576. The fellow Xie that Zhou Yuntian mentioned was called Xie Yunhan. He was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. He wasn't tall and had a thin figure. He was a Cloud River 7th Order cultivator. Such a cultivation at such a young age undoubtedly meant one thing. Xie Yunhan's cultivation aptitude was not high. Could even be said that he was very poor. There was a special existence in the Spirit Stream battlefield. They were known as veteran 9th Order cultivators. They were limited by their aptitude. After opening 180 spirit apertures, it was difficult for their cultivation to progress. The minimum requirement for a cultivator to break through to the Cloud River realm was to open 240 spirit apertures and switch to a heaven-grade secret art. Therefore, these veteran 9th Order cultivators were unable to break through to the Cloud River realm and could only waste their time in the 9th Order. Generally speaking, although there would not be any stagnant cultivators like veteran 9th Order cultivators on the Cloud River battlefield, there were still some middle-aged faces. However, there were not many of them. Xie Yunhan was undoubtedly one of them. In the entire Fox Immortal Valley he was the oldest, but his cultivation was not the highest. Under Zhou Yuntian's lead, Lu Yi met Xie Yunhan and they got to know each other. After learning that Lu Yi cultivated the Tao of Arrays and was arranged to be his assistant, Xie Yunhan was undoubtedly very happy. There were so many people in Fox Immortal Valley, but he was the only array cultivator. He had to arrange and maintain all the spirit arrays by himself. He was so busy every day that he was mentally and physically exhausted. If not for this, his cultivation would not only be at the Cloud River 7th Order. Lu Yi even met some white-haired old men. They were all cultivators who were unable to open more spirit apertures because of their lack of aptitude. On the battlefield of the Cloud River, there were very few cultivators who were very old. This was because the cultivation of Cloud River tier cultivators could rely on things like spirit lots to rapidly increase their cultivation level. As long as a cultivator's luck was not too bad, and his personality was too lazy, his cultivation level would always be able to increase bit by bit. However, it did not mean that it did not exist. Everyone's aptitude was different, so their cultivation speed was naturally different. Lu Yi nodded, naturally. Xie Yunhan waved his hand, follow me. Saying so, he led the way. Search. Soon they arrived at a corner of Fox Immortal Valley. Xie Yunhan pointed ahead and said, there's a trapping formation here, but it's been set up for some time. I'm preparing to change its location. Fellow Taoist Lu, I'll have to trouble you to remove this trapping formation. Fellow Taoist Xie, I'll leave fellow Taoist Lu to you. He's new here, so there are many things he doesn't understand. You'll have to help him, Zhou Yuntian said. Xie Yunhan said, rest assured, fellow Taoist Zhou. After Zhou Yuntian left, Xie Yunhan looked Lu Yi up and down. His eyes were filled with unconcealable joy. Obviously he welcomed Lu Ye's arrival. He said, fellow Taoist Lu, I want to test your attainments in the Tao of Arrays. You won't mind, right? The method used to set up this trap array was not exquisite, and the strength of the entire array was not high. Even if he accidentally entered it and got trapped, he could still break it with brute force within the time it took to brew a cup of tea. With his current attainments in the array Tao, it would be a piece of cake for him to dispel this array formation. He pondered for a moment, pondering whether he should reveal his true abilities or hide his true abilities. All right. Lu Yi nodded and stepped forward. With the enhancement of his insight spirit inscriptions, he observed the array formation in front of him. Breaking arrays was something he was very familiar with. It was even easier than setting up an array. After a few breaths he came up with a plan. He was just a 4th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. If it wasn't for his special abilities, the Fox Demon might not even look at him. If he wanted to kill the Fox Demon, he would have to gain her trust and respect. Compared to that, the possibility of attracting Xie Yunhan's jealousy was nothing. After making up his mind, Lu Yi immediately got to work. If he revealed his true abilities, he might attract Xie Yunhan's disgust and jealousy. After all, he was the only array cultivator in the entire Fox Immortal Valley and was highly regarded by the Fox Demon. Once he showed that his attainments in the Tao of Arrays were higher than Xie Yunhan's, Xie Yunhan's treatment would definitely not be as good as before. But this way he could take advantage of the situation and make the fox demon value him more and entrust him with important tasks. This would also make it easier for him to take action in the future. When he met the fox demon yesterday, she was obviously the most interested in Li Baxin because Li Baxin was famous and had great potential. Next was Xiao Liang because Xiao Liang was the strongest. Looking at the leopard through a tube, Xie Yunhan vaguely sensed that Lu Ye's attainments in the Tao of arrays were not trivial. However, he could not see much from just one array. Xie Yunhan immediately led him around the Fox Immortal Valley. Some arrays needed to be removed, some needed to be strengthened and maintained, and some places needed to be rearranged. Under Xie Yunhan's instructions, Lu Yi meticulously and quickly completed one task after another. In just 20 breaths, the trapping array was perfectly broken and the array flags were retrieved one by one. Xie Yunhan was stunned and amazed. Fellow cultivator Lu's attainments in the Tao of arrays seemed to be very high. Although this array was arranged by him, in all fairness, even if he did it himself, his efficiency might not be as fast as Lu Ye's. Xie Yunhan did not show any jealousy or disgust as Lu Yi expected. Instead, he was very happy. He pulled Lu Ye's arm and said, "I've stolen half a day of leisure. Fellow cultivator Lu, come accompany me for a drink." Lu Yi naturally would not refuse. He could take this opportunity to improve their relationship and learn more about the situation in the Fox Immortal Valley from Xie Yunhan. Following Xie Yunhan to his loft, Xie Yunhan personally cooked a few dishes and dug out a jar of hidden wine from the open space behind the loft. The scheduled day's work was all completed by noon. The surprise in Xie Yunhan's eyes grew stronger. Previously, when Lu Yi was sent to assist him, he only thought that his future tasks would be easier. Now he knew that Lu Ye's attainments in the Tao of arrays far surpassed him. It was more than easy, this was simply picking up a treasure. After 3 rounds of wine, the atmosphere was much more harmonious. The fellow cultivator Lu in Xie Yunhan's mouth also became Brother Lu. Although it was the first time the two met, because of the secret technique planted by the fox demon, Xie Yunhan did not have much vigilance against Lu Yi. Basically, as Zhou Yuntian said before, as long as they entered the Fox Immortal Valley, they would be family in the future. The jar of wine was quickly finished. Xie Yunhan got up and said, "Brother Lu, wait a moment, I'll go get another jar." On the second floor of the pavilion, Xie Yunhan and Lu Yi sat opposite each other, drinking and chatting. Because of second senior sister, Lu Yi rarely drank. However, with his cultivation level, as long as he did not drink too much, it would not affect him much. He was not in a hurry to inquire about the situation in the Fox Immortal Valley. He just casually chatted with Xie Yunhan. Most of it was given to Li Baxin by him. He only kept a small part for himself. After all, it was useless for him to keep it. He opened the seal and poured a bowl for Xie Yunhan and half a bowl for himself. Xie Yunhan picked it up and sniffed it gently. His eyes were intoxicated. He raised his head and drank it all. Then he closed his eyes and tasted it for a while. Then he shook his head and said, "Yunzhou's jasper flower wine is still so sweet." Lu Yi hurriedly said, "Brother Xie, I have some here. You don't have to trouble yourself." Saying so, he took out several jars of different wines from his storage space. He didn't drink, but he had killed so many cultivators from the myriad Devil's Ridge. Many of them were fond of wine, so there would always be some wine from the 9 prefectures in their storage bags. They all became his spoils of war. Xie Yunhan smiled. "Whether it's the War Province or the Cloud Province, we are family here." "Yes, Brother Xie." He drank another big bowl. "If Brother Xie likes to drink, drink more." Lu Yi raised his hand and filled his bowl again. He asked casually, "Brother Xie is from the Cloud Province?" "Yes, I am from the Cloud Province." A look of reminiscence appeared in Xie Yunhan's eyes. "Back then, I loved this jasper flower wine the most. Is Brother Lu also from the Cloud Province?" Lu Yi said, "I'm from the War Province." He really wanted to ask him what he had been busy with for the past 12 years. Why was he only at the Cloud River Realm 7th Order? Xie Yunhan seemed to have thought of something again and could not help but sigh. "It's been 12 years. Look at the people coming and going in the valley. The new generation replacing the old generation. Sigh. In this valley, is there anyone who has been here longer than Brother Xie?" Lu Yi asked. Lu Yi poured the wine and said casually, "Brother Xie, I'm new here. There are many things in the valley that I don't know. Brother Xie seems to have been here for a long time. If I do anything wrong in the future, I hope Brother Xie can give me some pointers." Xie Yunhan picked up some food with his chopsticks and said proudly while eating, "Brother, don't worry. You and I work together and have similar temperaments. This Xie will take care of you in the future. I don't dare to say anything else, but no one in the valley knows the taboos of Fox Immortal Valley better than I do. After all, this Xie has been here for 12 years. 12 years? Lu Ye's eyes twitched. Since he said so, Lu Ye did not ask any more questions to avoid alerting others. He immediately raised his big bowl and said, "Brother Xie, let me toast you again." Xie Yunhan said, "Brother Xie is too polite. Cheers, cheers." They drank from noon to night. Lu Ye did not manage to find out much from Xie Yunhan. However, what he knew now verified his previous guess. In this seemingly peaceful and auspicious Fox Immortal Valley, there was definitely some invisible danger hidden within. This danger would cause a person with a higher cultivation to die faster. Xie Yunhan chuckled, shook his head and said, "That's not true. Basically, the people who come here will only be here for 1 or 2 years at most." At this point he suddenly sobered up a lot. He stopped talking and said in a low voice, "In any case, you and I, as formation cultivators, are indispensable talents under his honor. Therefore our safety is guaranteed. Another point, Brother Lu, remember not to increase your cultivation too quickly." "Why is that?" Lu Ye faintly felt that he seemed to have touched on some secret. Listening to Xie Yunhan's words, it seemed that if his cultivation was raised too fast, he would encounter some danger. Xie Yunhan did not explain and only said, "Listen to me. In these years there have been many geniuses in the valley. Their cultivation has advanced rapidly, but so what? Now they have all turned into dust. On the contrary, this Xie has been living until today." Chapter 577. Lu Yi suspected that Xie Yunhan's cultivation was only at the 7th order on purpose. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a person who had stayed in Fox Immortal Valley for 12 years to only have this level of cultivation. As the days passed, life in Fox Immortal Valley was extremely peaceful. Lu Yi had nothing else to do besides patrolling with Xie Yunhan and maintaining the spirit array. After the first few days of busyness, the following days became extremely leisurely. Almost every day, Lu Yi would contact Feng Yuchan and inform her of Li Baxin's current situation so that she didn't have to worry. In the past few days, Lu Yi had also heard a lot of news from Xie Yunhan. There were quite a number of cultivators in Fox Immortal Valley, more than 80 people, and 15 of them were at the 9th Order Cloud River realm. However, this was the deepest part of the Great Mang Mountains, and there were not many traces of cultivator activity, so there had been no newcomers joining Fox Immortal Valley recently. On this day, Lu Yi returned from drinking with Xie Yunhan and saw 2 figures crossing each other from afar, flying swords shuttling through the void. He went forward to take a look and found that Li Baxin and a woman were exchanging sword techniques. Such a huge force was comparable to the number of cultivators in a large Grade A spiritual land. Lu Yi had once asked Xie Yunhan indirectly why the fox demon had gathered so many cultivators. It couldn't really be a child's play. However, since it involved Fox Demon, Xie Yunhan didn't dare to say much, only saying that Lu Yi would understand in a few days. Every day, a group of cultivators from Fox Immortal Valley would go out to gather talents. The so-called gathering of talents was nothing more than searching for cultivators everywhere. Then they would have the Fox Demon knock them out and bring them back. Then they would plant a soul mystic technique on them for the Fox Demon to use. The atmosphere in Fox Immortal Valley was harmonious. Because of the soul secret technique, the cultivators from the 2 camps from all over the 9 states were like family, so this kind of sparring was naturally not prohibited. Lu Yi also went over to watch for a while, but he didn't know much about sword techniques. He only felt that the 2's flying swords shuttled back and forth as they fought. It was very beautiful. Suddenly his heart skipped a beat. The woman was the one surnamed Yu who was guarding Fox Demon's bedroom. Her name seemed to be Yu Daiwei, and she was also a 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. That day she said that she was also a sword cultivator and that she would look for Li Baxin to spar when she was free. Lu Yi had been hanging out with Xie Yunhan for the past few days, but he didn't know when his 4th senior brother had a relationship with this woman. One was a 5th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator while the other was a 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. If they really fought, Li Baxin would naturally not be their match. However, the 2 of them were just exchanging pointers on their sword techniques, so they fought back and forth. The scene was very lively, and many cultivators passing by stopped to watch and point at them. Yeza's right, it was Yi Tian's was for Yeza's, was not a. Thinking of this, Lu Yi immediately walked in the direction of Xiaoliang's residence. After a while, he arrived in front of a pavilion and shouted, is fellow Xia here? 3 breaths later, the window on the second floor was pushed open and Xiao Yang's face appeared. They looked at each other and Xiao Yang frowned. What's the matter? He practiced saber techniques, but no one had been able to teach him saber techniques because no one in the Jade Blood sect practiced saber techniques. Although he had obtained a lot of saber techniques from the Wild Saber sect, what the Wild Saber sect had given him were all very basic things. Xiao Yang was from Wild Saber sect, so his saber techniques were undoubtedly the essence of Wild Saber sect. Lu Yi felt a lot of pressure when he fought with Xiao Yang before. The angle of Xiao Yang's saber was very tricky, and even though he was heavily injured, his saber was still sharp. If he went to spar with Xiao Yang now, he wouldn't refuse, right? Maybe he could even ask him to teach him some saber techniques? Xiao Yang raised his eyebrows in surprise. You want to ask me about saber techniques? Yes, I hope Brother Xia can teach me. Xiao Yang stared at him for a long time before his furrowed brows relaxed. The corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a meaningful smile. All right. The spirit secret technique planted by the fox demon only affected a person's loyalty to the fox demon. It wouldn't destroy the cultivator's character. The two had a lot of enmity before. Even if they both entered Fox Immortal Valley, it wouldn't change Xiao Yang's impression of Lu Yi. But because of the fox demon's order, he wouldn't attack Lu Yi again. Lu Yi cupped his fists and said, I'm here to ask Brother Xia about saber techniques. Lu Yi cupped his fists and said, please. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped on the ground and charged towards Xiao Yang like a bolt of lightning. As he closed in on Xiao Yang, he unsheathed his Panshan saber, and a fiery red saber light slashed down. Facing this aggressive attack, Xiao Yang just raised his saber to meet it. He jumped down from the pavilion and flew forward saying, It's not good to fight here, come with me. Lu Yi followed him forward and observed Xiao Yang's aura. The other party's injuries should be more or less healed. After a while they arrived at an open space. Xiao Yang turned to look at Lu Yi and summoned his saber. His aura surged and he said concisely, Come, let me see what you're capable of. Fortunately, Xiao Yang didn't want to kill him. Otherwise, if he followed up with a few more attacks, Lu Yi would be crippled. That day, Lu Yi had been able to force Xiao Yang into a desperate situation, almost killing him, but that was only because Xiao Yang had been seriously injured. As a disciple of the Wild Blade sect who was ranked in the top 10 of the Spirit Stream list, Xiao Yang's talent could be said to be outstanding. How could the current Lu Yi compete with a Cloud River Realm 9th Order Master? Landing on the ground, Lu Yi couldn't stop himself from retreating. When he regained his balance, he rushed forward again. With a bang, Lu Yi felt a strong force coming from the front. His right hand holding the saber went numb and the web between his thumb and forefinger cracked. Xiao Yang didn't move. The saber in his hand chopped down and Lu Ye's figure was immediately sent flying. The difference in cultivation was too great. Even if Xiao Yang let him attack first, he still suffered a big loss. It would be better if Xiao Yang could give him pointers on his saber technique. However, although Xiao Yang wouldn't kill Lu Yi because of the fox demon's soul secret technique, he was still resentful of Lu Yi. It was unrealistic to ask him to give Lu Yi pointers on his saber technique. Xiao Yang only agreed to exchange pointers like this because he wanted to vent the resentment in his heart. While they were fighting, Zhou Yuntian came to Xie Yunhan's residence uninvited. Training in the Mirage world could improve one's ability to kill enemies, but how could it compare to the benefits of fighting with the most orthodox saber master like Xiao Yang? Every time they fought, every time he was repelled, Lu Yi would learn something. The angle of his opponent's saber, the timing of his attacks, the use of spirit chi. Even if Xiao Yang just wanted to teach him a lesson, Lu Yi would still benefit a lot from this fight. Lu Yi felt more and more that coming to Xiao Yang to exchange pointers was the right choice. Zhou Yuntian came to find Xie Yunhan mainly to ask about Lu Ye's situation. As the only 2 formation cultivators in the entire Fox Immortal Valley, Zhou Yuntian naturally had to pay more attention. Brother Xie, how is fellow Taoist Lu's attainments in Formation Dao? After drinking a few cups of wine, Zhou Yuntian stated the purpose of his visit. A genius. Xie Yunhan praised generously. In the entire Fox Immortal Valley, Xie Yunhan had the most seniority. He had been here for 12 years and no one could compare to him. Similarly, he was also the oldest. However, the one who was most valued by the Fox Demon was undoubtedly Zhou Yuntian. It could be said that Zhou Yuntian was the chief steward of the entire Fox Immortal Valley. Big and small matters were settled by him. Usually, the Fox Demon stayed in his bedroom and basically didn't show his face. In the room, the two of them were drinking and chatting merrily. After getting familiar with Lu Yi, Xie Yunhan also asked Lu Yi about Formation Dao. Lu Yi didn't hide much about it, so Xie Yunhan benefited a lot. Zhou Yunqian's eyes lit up when he heard that. He cautiously said, "Brother Xie, aren't you exaggerating a little? I know Brother Xie's attainments in Formation Dao. Is fellow Daoist Lu really as powerful as you say?" Xie Yunhan shook his head and said, "You're not a formation cultivator, so you don't understand. However, I can guarantee that I'm not exaggerating. I even feel that Brother Lu hasn't completely revealed his abilities in Formation Dao. I'm afraid he's afraid of hurting me." Zhou Yuntian was stunned. In the past, the Fox Immortal Valley had recruited a few formation cultivators, but none of them caught Xie Yunhan's eye. Although Xie Yunhan's cultivation wasn't high, his attainments in Formation Dao weren't low. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the ability to maintain the entire Fox Immortal Valley's Formation Dao. So, when he heard such a high evaluation of Lu Yi, Zhou Yuntian was stunned. "Brother Zhou, Brother Lu's attainments in the Dao of formations are much higher than mine. Although my cultivation level hasn't improved much over the years, I've spent a lot of time on the Dao of formations. I'm confident that there aren't many people in the Cloud River tier who can surpass me in the Dao of formations, unless they're from a large sect that cultivates formations. However, Brother Lu's attainments in the Dao of formations are truly admirable. Let me put it this way, even if I were given another 10 years, I wouldn't be able to compare to Brother Lu in the Dao of formations." Brother Xie means, "The next time we take action, Brother Lu will preside over the Formation Dao and I'll assist. Perhaps we'll succeed. I'll have to report this matter to Senior and let Senior make the decision. However, Brother Xie, if that's the case, wouldn't we have picked up a treasure?" Zhou Yuntian looked excited. Lu Ye's fourth order cultivation wasn't much in the Fox Immortal Valley, but if his attainments in Formation Dao were as exaggerated as Xie Yunhan said, then he would definitely be a treasure for the Fox Immortal Valley. "Speaking of which, even if Brother Zhou didn't come looking for me today, I was going to look for you." Yes, everything is for the sake of helping your honor succeed." Saying so, he hurriedly stood up. "This matter is of great importance. I'll go see Senior now and tell her this good news. Senior will definitely be very happy." Xie Yunhan raised his hand. "As long as I can help Senior succeed, it doesn't matter who is in charge and who is assisting. I, Xie Yunhan, have been in the Fox Immortal Valley for so many years, how could I not see this point?" Chapter 578. After leaving Xie Yunhan's place, Zhou Yuntian rushed to report Lu Ye's matter. However, he didn't walk far before he sensed the sounds of a fierce battle. He frowned and followed the sound. Fox Immortal Valley didn't forbid cultivators from exchanging pointers. After all, it was beneficial for cultivators to increase their strength. A good exchange of pointers could also improve the relationship between cultivators. However, such a fierce battle was rare. As the steward of Fox Immortal Valley, how could Zhou Yuntian not care? Upon closer inspection, Zhou Yuntian's face paled in fright. This was because the two people fighting were Lu Yi and Xiao Liang, two newcomers. Moreover, both of their attacks were extremely ruthless and sharp, but the difference in their cultivations was simply too great, so Lu Yi appeared to be in quite a sorry state. What caused Zhou Yuntian's eyes to twitch even more was the fact that Lu Ye's body was covered in wounds that were neither light nor heavy, blood staining his robes. "Stop, quickly stop!" Zhou Yuntian hurriedly shouted. On the battlefield, Lu Ye's qi and blood were surging. He held his mountain saber and stood in place. On the other hand, Xiao Liang was calm and composed. Seeing Zhou Yuntian suddenly come over, the two hurriedly stopped and bowed. "Fellow Daoist Zhou." Zhou Yuntian's expression was gloomy. He first glared at Xiao Liang, making him confused. Then he turned to Lu Yi and asked with concern, "Fellow Daoist Lu, how are your injuries? Are they serious?" His enthusiasm surprised Lu Yi, but considering Zhou Yuntian's status as the steward of Fox Immortal Valley, he didn't think too much about it. He only replied, "They're all superficial wounds. I'll be fine after some rest." Zhou Yuntian let out a long breath. That's good. He turned to Xiao Liang and reprimanded, "Fellow Daoist Xia, fellow Daoist Lu's cultivation is far inferior to yours. How could you be so heavy-handed?" Xiao Liang muttered, "No, fellow Daoist Zhou, it's Lu Ye who came to find me. He wants me to exchange pointers with him. If you want to exchange pointers, then exchange pointers. How could you injure him?" Zhou Yuntian's face sank. Everyone in Fox Immortal Valley is of one heart and is as close as brothers and sisters. Fellow Daoist Lu came to exchange pointers with you. You should give him pointers, not injure him. Xiaoliang didn't know what to say. Most of the sparring between cultivators could indeed stop at a certain point. However, for two cultivators who use sabers, it was really not effective at all. They had to fight with all their strength to achieve the desired effect. Moreover, when he fought with Lu Yi, Yang Kai had done his best to control his strength, otherwise, Lu Yi would not have suffered such a simple flesh wound. Zhou Yunqian's indiscriminate reprimand really made him angry, but he couldn't refute, so he could only look at Lu Yi. Lu Yi said, "Fellow Taoist Zhou, please calm down. I was indeed the one who suggested the spar. Furthermore, fellow Taoist Xia has already done his best to hold back. It's my fault for not being strong enough." Disregarding everything else, he had benefited a lot from this fight with Xiaoliang. He couldn't allow Xiaoliang to refuse to spar with him because of Zhou Yuntian. That would be a great loss. Since I know that your strength is not high, then you should be even more careful. Zhou Yunqian's face was cold. Lu Yi really couldn't figure out what was going on with Zhou Yuntian. Speaking of which, besides coming into contact with him at the beginning of Fox Immortal Valley, he hadn't seen him at all these days. His favoritism really made Lu Yi puzzled. How could he know that Zhou Yuntian had come out from Xie Yunhan's place, and Xie Yunhan had given him an extremely high evaluation, making Zhou Yuntian realize how precious Lu Yi was in terms of array Dao. Xiaoliang sighed and said, "I understand. I won't do it again in the future. Please rest assured, fellow Taoist Zhou." Only then did Zhou Yunqian's expression become slightly better. He nodded and said, "Remember, everyone in our Fox Immortal Valley is your brother and sister. If there are any grievances in the past, let them go with the wind." After a pause he continued, "Both of you use sabers. Fellow Taoist Lu wants to spar with you because he wants to improve his saber skills. Since that's the case, you can directly guide him. If you really want to spar, you must hold back. You must not hurt him again." "Yes," Xiaoliang responded. "Okay, today's matter ends here. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. I don't want to see such a scene next time, otherwise his honor will definitely be unhappy," Zhou Yuntian warned lightly. Hearing him mention his honor, Xiaoliang's expression couldn't help but change. He hurriedly said, "Please rest assured, fellow Taoist Zhou. Lu Yi wants to cultivate the saber, so I will teach him everything I know. I won't hold anything back." "That's good. Take care, fellow Taoist Zhou." Zhou Yuntian nodded lightly, then looked at Lu Yi and said, "If there's anything in the future, feel free to contact me." Lu Yi responded blankly, "Okay." Watching Zhou Yuntian's back disappear, Lu Yi had a strange expression. Today's matter, Zhou Yuntian said that everyone in Fox Immortal Valley was his brother and sister, but he was biased towards him. Lu Yi naturally felt it, but why? In terms of cultivation, he was the weakest in the entire Fox Immortal Valley. Other than him, only Li Baxin was at the 5th order. Above him, the weakest cultivator was at the 6th order. Was it because of his recent performance in the Tao of Arrays? Looking at the direction Zhou Yuntian came from, he should have come from Xie Yunhan's side. In that case, Xie Yunhan should have said something to him that caused Zhou Yuntian to be so blatantly biased towards him. He even used his honor's name in the end. It seemed that he had made the right choice not to hide his strength in the Tao of Arrays. "Lu Yi." Xiaoliang's voice rang in his ears. Lu Yi turned around and said, "Fellow Taoist Xia, don't take what fellow Taoist Zhou said to heart. Let's fight again. You don't have to hold back." "Forget it." Xiaoliang's expression was calm, and no one could tell whether he was happy or angry. Since fellow Taoist Zhou has given the order, then the matter of exchanging pointers will be dropped. However, in terms of saber techniques, I can teach you wholeheartedly. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. Although your saber techniques are overbearing and violent, I can see that your foundation is very poor. It should be because you have no one to guide you systematically. Thinking about it, there were only 2 or 3 people in the blue blood sect before you, and none of them used the saber. I'm afraid no one can teach you. Lu Ye's eyes lit up when he heard this. "I can ask you anything? As long as it's saber techniques, I'll do it. I won't hide anything." "Then I'll thank fellow Taoist Xia in advance." Before entering Fox Immortal Valley, Lu Yi had never imagined that he would one day be able to cultivate saber techniques under Xiaoliang's guidance. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Xiaoliang was from the Wild Saber sect and had extraordinary talent. The saber techniques he cultivated were the essence of the Wild Saber sect's many years of accumulation. If he could guide Lu Yi, he would definitely make a lot of mistakes. Under his guidance, Lu Yi began to cultivate from the most basic chopping. Although the whole process was dry and boring, Lu Yi was in high spirits. While one was teaching wholeheartedly and the other was learning diligently, Zhou Yuntian had already reported Lu Ye's matter in the fox demon's bedroom. When the coquettish fox demon heard this, she revealed a look of surprise and smiled gently. "So, you really picked up a treasure this time? Since Xie Yunhan said so, he must have his reasons. Since that's the case, Lu Yi will be in charge of the formations in Fox Immortal Valley in the future. Let Xie Yunhan be the assistant." That chuckle made Zhou Yunqian's bones go soft. Even the few women serving the fox demon couldn't help but reveal an intoxicated look in their eyes. Zhou Yuntian kept his mind clear and did not dare to show disrespect. He accepted the order and said, "This subordinate understands. However, Your Excellency, we haven't been able to find any newcomers recently." The fox demon said, "After all, this place is deep in the Taimong Mountains. Usually, cultivators rarely appear. It's normal that you can't find anyone." Zhou Yuntian probed, "Then should we let someone send a message and lure some people over?" After they entered Fox Immortal Valley, they had cut off all contact with the outside world. The cultivators outside could only determine whether they were alive or dead through the existence of the battlefield imprint. They could not determine their current state and location. However, if they took the initiative to send a message to the outside world, it would definitely attract a group of people. At that time, as long as the fox demon took action, it would continue to strengthen Fox Immortal Valley's strength. No. The fox demon decisively rejected. Her body that was originally lying on the soft couch slowly sat up. Her expression was solemn. "Remember, once you enter Fox Immortal Valley, you can never send a message to the outside world. Whoever dares to send a message will die." Zhou Yunqian's face paled. He lowered his head and said, "Yes, this subordinate understands." "You're dismissed." "Yes." Zhou Yuntian respectfully retreated. After he left, the fox demon's beautiful eyes fluctuated. Indeed, if they followed Zhou Yuntian's method, Fox Immortal Valley would definitely be able to rapidly strengthen their strength. At that time, not to mention 100 people, even 200 people or more would be able to gather in an extremely short period of time. However, Fox Immortal Valley had existed for so many years. She had used this method to enslave too many human cultivators. She could already feel an indescribable sense of danger. It was a sense of danger that felt like a sharp blade hanging over her neck that could fall down at any time. When she first felt this sense of danger, she thought it was an illusion. However, as time passed, this sense of danger became clearer and clearer. She understood that it was not an illusion. Instead, it was Tianji paying attention to her. A power that should not have appeared on the battlefield of the Cloud River tier had appeared. This power was used to enslave Cloud River tier cultivators. This undoubtedly infuriated Tianji, causing her to feel an immense sense of danger. She knew that there would be a day when Tianji would punish her for her actions. However, before that, she still had something that she had to do. She could not do it with her own strength. She could only enslave more cultivators to help her complete it. Enlisting new cultivators was already the limit. If she really used that method to lure others into the trap, it would only increase Tianji's attention on her and the danger hanging over her head. The gains would not make up for the losses. "It's already late. Cultivate again tomorrow," Xiaoliang said. He took out a jade scroll from his storage bag and handed it to Lu Yi. "This is the cultivation experience of saber techniques compiled by the elders of my sect. You can take a look at it. Be sure not to lose it." Lu Yi took the jade scroll. "Many thanks, Brother Xia. Fox Immortal Valley. It was really a good place." Chapter 579. In just a few days, Lu Yi had already figured out the situation in Fox Immortal Valley, but he still had no clue how to safely take Li Baxin away. As long as Li Baxin's soul secret technique was not broken, it was impossible for Li Baxin to follow him obediently. Killing Li Baxin was even more impossible. Apart from the first time he saw Li Baxin in Li Baxin's bedroom, Lu Yi had not seen Li Baxin for the past few days. She had always stayed in her bedroom and did not show her face. Moreover, even if she did show up, Lu Yi could not kill her with his current strength. She had many cultivators protecting her. There was another piece of good news which came from Feng Yuechan. The wolf pack at the spiritual land had grown stronger. At first there were only 100 wolves, but later on, they went somewhere and gathered more of their kind. When Tan Sheng and the others killed their way into the spiritual land, there were already more than 200 wolves. Just a day ago, the wolf pack brought back another batch of their kind, expanding the pack to more than 300 wolves. In Lu Ye's plan, killing Fox Demon required the help of the wolf pack, so the wolf pack's growth was a good thing for him. He just had to wait for the right opportunity. There were too many cultivators in Fox Immortal Valley and they had formations to rely on. Even if there were more than 300 wolves, they would definitely not be a match for them. If the wolf pack could grow to 500, they might be able to try to attack Fox Immortal Valley, but 300 was still too much. He could only continue to wait for a good opportunity. On the second day of learning saber techniques from Xiao Liang, Zhou Yuntian came over and conveyed Fox Demon's orders. In the future, Lu Yi would be in charge of the formations in Fox Immortal Valley and Xie Yunhan would be his assistant. Since it was an order from Fox Demon, Lu Yi had no reason to refuse. He immediately accepted the order and finally confirmed that Zhou Yuntian was biased towards him yesterday because of his performance in formations. Xie Yunhan must have said a lot of good things about him. In fact, there was not much difference between who was the main and who was the assistant. The formations in Fox Immortal Valley had been maintained for many years. A few days ago, Lu Yi and Xie Yunhan had done various maintenance and adjustments. Now the two of them did not need to do much. Every day they would walk around Fox Immortal Valley 3 times in the morning, afternoon, and evening to check the operation of the formations. The change in position was only a nominal change. It allowed Lu Yi to receive more attention and a higher position in Fox Immortal Valley. Most of the time, Lu Yi cultivated his saber arts with Xiao Liang. He had never paid attention to it before, but ever since he started cultivating his saber arts with Xiao Liang, he realized that his foundation was too poor. Ever since he had embarked on the path of cultivation, he had learned almost everything on his own. That was especially true when it came to saber techniques. No one had ever taught him a complete system. The only help he had received was the saber techniques that his third senior brother had entrusted to his son at the Spirit Stream battlefield, which had allowed him to learn the art of transfusing blood. However, this was only a secret technique that all weapon cultivators needed to cultivate. It was of no use in improving one's foundation. Xiao Liang's careful guidance would undoubtedly make up for Lu Ye's shortcomings. Lu Yi cherished such an opportunity. How to exert force, how to breathe, and how to change moves were all very particular. Lu Yi used to just follow his instincts when swinging his saber, but now with Xiao Liang's guidance he felt a sense of enlightenment. The foundation of his saber arts was improving day by day. Xiao Liang had praised Lu Ye's talent in saber arts more than once. He had even said that if he had entered the Wild Saber sect back then, he would have been able to obtain the essence of the Wild Saber sect. Time flew by and a few days passed. Early in the morning, Lu Yi and Xie Yunhan inspected the various formations in Fox Immortal Valley as usual. It took them half an hour to check all the formations and make sure that they were working well. Lu Yi was about to go back and cultivate his saber arts with Xiao Liang when Xie Yunhan suddenly said, "Brother, there's another place to be inspected today." Lu Yi asked curiously, "There's another place?" There were only so many places to be inspected every day. He had become completely familiar with them these days and was sure that he had not missed anything. Where did the other place come from? That's the forbidden area of Fox Immortal Valley. It needs to be inspected once every half a month. No one is allowed to go near it on normal days, Xie Yunhan explained. Forbidden area? Lu Yi suddenly became interested. There was actually a forbidden area in Fox Immortal Valley. This was something that he had never known before. However, since it was a forbidden area, it was naturally impossible for him to know about it as a newcomer. As Xie Yunhan walked in a direction, they arrived at the deepest part of Fox Immortal Valley. A large formation appeared in front of them. "It's here." Xie Yunhan pointed at the large formation in front of them. "No one is allowed to go near this place. However, His Honor has ordered me to come and inspect every half a month. In the future this matter will be handed over to you." Lu Yi looked at the formation in front of him. On the surface, it was a large concealment formation. Inside there should be a large defensive formation operating. However, with the concealment formation he could not see the situation inside. The area covered by the formation was not too big. It was only about a dozen feet in radius, forming a circle. "What's inside?" Lu Yi asked. Xie Yunhan shook his head. "I don't know." "You don't know?" Lu Yi was surprised. "When I came to Fox Immortal Valley, the forbidden area was already here. Usually I just maintain the formation and have never entered. Brother, His Honor does not allow anyone to enter. In the future you only need to come and inspect every half a month." "I understand." Immediately the two of them split up and inspected the formation. After confirming that the formation was in good condition, they quickly left. Brother, come over to my place for a drink? Xie Yunhan invited. I'll disturb brother later. I'll go and find brother Xia to cultivate my blade technique first. Xie Yunhan chuckled, then I'll wait for you. Fellow Taoist Lu. A voice suddenly sounded from not far away. Lu Yi turned his head and looked over, only to see Zhou Yuntian looking at him with a smile. From the looks of it, Zhou Yuntian seemed to have been waiting for him. Xie Yunhan said, Brother Zhou should be looking for you for something. You can go over first. Lu Yi nodded his head, then separated from Xie Yunhan and walked towards Zhou Yuntian. When he arrived, he cupped his fist and greeted, Fellow Taoist Zhou. Zhou Yuntian said with concern, You've worked hard these past few days. His Honor is very satisfied with your performance. Lu Yi immediately revealed a happy expression and said, Serving His Honor is subordinate's duty. Zhou Yuntian nodded his head slightly, Fellow Taoist Lu is right to think this way. Everything that we have is bestowed upon us by His Honor. Protecting His Honor is our greatest mission. His face was filled with fanaticism, as if even if His Honor asked him to die, he wouldn't even frown. Lu Yi felt a chill in his heart and changed the topic. Fellow Taoist Zhou is looking for me? Oh. Zhou Yuntian came back to his senses. When I met His Honor a few days ago, I remember fellow Taoist Lu said that you're proficient in the Tao of Spirit Runes, Formation Tao, and the Tao of Inscriptions? Actually, strictly speaking, I'm a Spirit Rune Master. I've only dabbled in the Tao of Formations and the Tao of Inscriptions. You've only dabbled in the Tao of Formations, yet fellow Taoist Lu has such high attainments in the Tao of Formations. Then what about the Tao of Inscriptions? I've only started cultivating the Tao of Inscriptions not long ago. It can't be compared to the Tao of Formations. Is it possible to inscribe inscriptions? It's possible, but I can only inscribe 3 types of inscriptions. Which 3 types? The offensive type of sharpness, the defensive type of defense, and the auxiliary type of wind type of inscriptions. Zhou Yuntian's eyes lit up and he eagerly asked, What's the success rate? Basically, the possibility of failure is very small. Previously, when he practiced with the wolf pack, he rarely failed. Moreover, it didn't matter if he failed. After a few days, when the inscriptions recovered, he could just inscribe them again. It wouldn't cause much damage to the inscriptions. Good. Zhou Yuntian was overjoyed. Fellow Taoist Lu, can you show me a thing or two? Of course. I wonder who wants to inscribe inscriptions? Lu Yi still had a lot of inscriptions materials in his hands, and it was enough for him to use. Inscribe on my body. Then, fellow Taoist Zhou, please follow me. After Lu Yi finished speaking, he led the way. Soon he returned to his own pavilion, took out all kinds of inscriptions materials, and introduced them to Zhou Yuntian. This time he said, Fellow Taoist Zhou, what kind of inscriptions do you want? Zhou Yuntian pondered for a moment and said, Defensive type. Sharp inscriptions were not suitable for piercing people's bodies. This was different from the demon wolves. After all, cultivators usually had spirit weapons when fighting, and no one would use their hands to scratch or bite people. Inscriptions used on cultivators were either defensive or wind-moving. One allowed cultivators to have a stronger defensive method, while the other allowed cultivators to run faster. Overall, defensive type was the most suitable. It wasn't strange for Zhou Yuntian to make such a choice. Then where does fellow Taoist Zhou want to inscribe? Lu Yi asked again. Zhou Yuntian reached out and tore open his clothes at his chest and pointed at his chest. Here. It was a very normal choice. The heart was a vital point, and with a defensive inscription protecting it, it was very likely that it could save one's life at some critical moment. Fellow Taoist Zhou, please lie down. Lu Yi gestured with his hand. Zhou Yuntian lay on Lu Yi's bed and opened his clothes. Lu Yi picked up the needle, dipped it in the materials for defensive inscriptions, and raised his hand to stab Zhou Yuntian's heart. When the needle fell, Zhou Yuntian's expression was clearly nervous, but he quickly relaxed. As the needles pierced Zhou Yuntian's chest one after another, a triangular yellow mark gradually appeared. Within the mark, there were many complex lines that intertwined with each other. Just by looking at it, it gave off a feeling of impregnable invulnerability. A single defensive rune was nothing to Lu Yi. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Lu Yi stopped and said, Fellow Taoist Zhou, it's done. Zhou Yuntian stood up and lowered his head to look at the mark on his chest. He channeled a bit of spiritual power into it, and a triangular barrier immediately appeared on his chest. The barrier was tightly attached to his chest, and it was clearly many times stronger than his protective spiritual power. Zhou Yuntian was overjoyed and couldn't help but praise, "Fellow Taoist Lu is truly amazing. To be able to inscribe inscriptions at the Cloud River realm, this is the first time I've seen such a thing." Lu Yi said, "Fellow Taoist Zhou, you flatter me. My skills are not great, and this is only a temporary inscription. The number of times I can use it is limited. It's fine as long as fellow Taoist Zhou is satisfied." "Satisfied, very satisfied." Zhou Yuntian nodded with a smile. When he looked at Lu Yi again, he increasingly felt that he had picked up a treasure. Chapter 580. In the fox demon's bedroom, Zhou Yuntian hurried over and bowed. "What's the matter?" The fox demon, who was lying on the soft bed, asked softly. A female cultivator stood in front of her, holding an incense burner. Smoke rose from the incense burner and entered the fox demon's nose, causing her face to redden. Even her slightly opened eyes were filled with mist. "Senior, this subordinate has been impolite. Please take a look," Zhou Yuntian said as he opened his chest and circulated his spirit energy. In the next moment, a spirit rune appeared on his chest. "Oh?" The fox demon opened her eyes slightly and looked at the spirit rune. Raising her hand, she shot out a beam of spirit energy and hit the spirit rune on Zhou Yuntian's chest. The spirit rune dimmed but did not break. Under the attack, Zhou Yuntian took a few steps back. "Is this a spirit rune?" The fox demon was quite knowledgeable and could naturally tell what this spirit rune was. "Senior, it is a spirit rune and it was done by Lu Yi. He has such ability." The fox demon was surprised. A few days ago, Zhou Yuntian came to report to her about Lu Yi dabbling in spirit runes, but she did not take it to heart. Because a fourth-order Cloud River realm cultivator, even if he practiced the spirit rune, it was impossible for him to have high attainments. But now, it seemed that she had underestimated him. The fox demon immediately realized the value of this spirit rune. Currently, the Fox Immortal Valley was unable to recruit more newcomers, but with the help of this spirit rune, the strength of the entire Fox Immortal Valley would increase by at least 10 to 20%. Compared to recruiting more newcomers, this kind of increase was more direct and convenient. How long did he spend on this spirit rune? The fox demon sat up straight and her expression became more serious. "Only an incense stick's worth of time. Moreover, I saw that his technique was extremely skilled. Obviously he knows this spirit rune very well." Zhou Yuntian reported truthfully. "An incense stick's worth of time." The fox demon was surprised. "Senior, perhaps you can let the fellow cultivators in the valley go to him and ask for a spirit rune? This way the fellow cultivators will have a higher chance of survival." The fox demon gently nodded. "All right, I will leave this matter to you." "Yes, I will definitely not disappoint your honor," Zhou Yuntian respectfully replied. Lu Yi was practicing his saber art with Xiao Yang. While he was immersed in his saber art, Zhou Yuntian suddenly led a group of people over and shouted from afar, "Fellow Taoist Lu." Lu Yi stopped what he was doing and sighed inwardly. What was to come would come. After he gave Zhou Yuntian the defensive tattoo, he had a premonition of what would happen. After all, the tattoo was a very convenient external force. Zhou Yuntian had already experienced the benefits of the tattoo, so there was no reason for him to ignore it. The female cultivator stood on the spot, rubbing the corner of her clothes with her hands. She pursed her red lips and looked hesitant. Even if it was the fox demon who gave the order, it still required a lot of courage and determination to undress in front of an unfamiliar man. Lu Yi turned his back to her and pretended to concoct the medicine. After a moment, a slight rustling sound came from behind. Immediately after, the female cultivator's trembling voice sounded, "Junior brother Lu, I'm ready." Lu Yi turned around, and what entered his eyes was a snow-white, flawless and soul-stirring arc. The female cultivator was sitting on the bed with her back facing him. The clothes that she took off were in her hands, blocking in front of him. Lu Yi stepped forward and looked straight ahead. The main thing was that he couldn't see anything. He stretched out his hand and pierced the needle. The female cultivator's body suddenly tensed up, and she even let out a short sound. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. "Senior sister, please don't make such a strange sound and disturb my mind. Also relax your body and don't move. Don't worry, I won't touch you." The female cultivator's face immediately turned as red as a blooming cuckoo. Even her fair back and slender neck were suffused with a layer of red light. She lowered her head and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, I understand. Needle by needle, he pierced down meticulously, and the imprint of the defensive spirit mark slowly appeared. After an incense stick's worth of time, Lu Yi stopped and let out a long breath. It's done, senior sister. You, turn around, the female cultivator said. Lu Yi turned around, and the sound of clothes being put on quickly came from behind him. Thank you, junior brother Lu. The female cultivator hurriedly thanked him, opened the door, and left as if she was escaping. Zhou Yuntian stuck his head in and looked at Lu Yi. His brows twitched and a meaningful smile hung on his face. Fellow Taoist Lu has such skills. I'm really envious. Next. One cultivator after another walked into the second floor and left after an incense stick's worth of time. In Fox Immortal Valley, male cultivators were the majority, and female cultivators only accounted for about 30% of them. This was also the current situation in the cultivation world of the 9 provinces. Generally speaking, there were more male cultivators than female cultivators, but it was unknown why this was the case. Male cultivators had no problem exposing their breasts in front of Lu Yi, but female cultivators were mostly shy. It was indeed a bit difficult for them to reveal their beauty in front of a man they weren't familiar with. However, they didn't dare to disobey his honor's orders. With the experience of the female cultivator at the very beginning, the female cultivators chose to inscribe the spirit mark on the back. However, for Lu Yi it was still a big test. There was also an exception. There was a female cultivator with a hot personality who began to take off her clothes as soon as she entered the room. Then, she lay straight on the bed and chose to inscribe the spirit mark on her chest. This made Lu Ye's mouth dry and the other party laughed wildly. If not for Lu Yi carefully guarding his mind, he might have failed to inscribe the spirit mark. After inscribing 10 people on the first day, Lu Yi used the excuse that his mind was too exhausted and closed the door to guests. He made an agreement with Zhou Yuntian to bring another 10 people over tomorrow. Zhou Yuntian naturally didn't refuse. After a short rest, Lu Yi went to find Xia Liang again and cultivated his saber art under his guidance. At night he first went to see Li Baxian and talked with his senior brother. Then he went to Xie Yunhan's residence and fulfilled his promise to drink and chat with him during the day. In the middle of the night, Lu Yi drunkenly walked out of Xie Yunhan's place and returned to his room to meditate and cultivate. An hour later, in the darkness, Lu Yi opened his eyes and softly called, "E." E immediately flashed out of Hupo's body and directly fled downstairs, quickly disappearing. Lu Yi also constructed the concealment and aura-concealing spirit marks on his body. His figure flashed and jumped out of the second floor. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and the night was quiet. Lu Yi quietly crept in a direction. With E scouting ahead and the concealment and aura-concealing spirit marks on his body, he didn't have to worry about being discovered by anyone. Moreover, he was familiar with the positions of all the formations in Fox Immortal Valley, so there was no risk of triggering any of them. Soon, Lu Yi arrived at the deepest part of Fox Immortal Valley. When he came here with Xie Yunhan during the day, he was curious about this place. Even Xie Yunhan, an old man who had stayed in Fox Immortal Valley for 12 years, didn't know what was inside. Obviously, there were some secrets hidden in this place. During the day, Lu Yi made up his mind to come and explore. No matter what secrets were hidden here, it must be related to the fox demon. Maybe he could find some unexpected gains here. Although this place was covered by a formation, Lu Yi was best at sneaking into the formation. Before arriving at the formation, Lu Yi looked around and made sure that there was no one around. Then, he constructed insight spirit marks on his eyes to observe the flaws of the formation and find the nodes of the formation. Soon he found something. He moved and came to the nodes of the formation. He raised his hand and threw out a few formation flags, embedding them near the nodes. As he did it again, the flow of spirit power at the nodes of the formation became slower and slower until it completely stopped. To be continued. Chapter 581. The Grand Formation here was a concealment Grand Formation and a defensive Grand Formation. The two Grand Formations were perfectly combined. It could be seen that the person who set up this Grand Formation had quite a high level of attainment in the Tao of formations. He was more powerful than Xie Yunhan, but there was still a gap between him and Xie Yunhan. Therefore it was not difficult for Lu Yi to sneak into such an array. At the place where the array flags were embedded, the spiritual power completely stopped flowing. Lu Yi raised his hand and put away the array flags. His figure flashed and rushed into the array. After he left, without the interference of the array flags, The spiritual power on the light screen of the array began to flow slowly. After entering the array, Lu Yi immediately hid his figure and looked around vigilantly. There was no danger. Everything in this forbidden area was clear at a glance. This was because this space was not too big. In a radius of about 20 feet, there was a lone grave. In front of the grave there was a stone tablet. Not far from the grave, there was an ancient and simple thing that was only a few feet tall. It looked like an altar. This was the forbidden area? Lu Yi frowned. Under the enhancement of the Insight Spirit inscription, he did not see anything particularly noteworthy. He strolled forward and walked to the stone tablet of the grave. Under the moonlight, the words on the stone tablet were imprinted in his eyes. Master Lei Jingyin's tomb. With only this line of words, Lei Jingyin should be the name of the person buried in this grave. However, the word master inevitably made him think. From what Xie Yunhan said before, this forbidden area had existed for at least a dozen years. The person in the grave must have died for a long time. However, the tombstone looked very clean and there was not a speck of dust on it. There was not even a weed on the grave. It seemed that someone often came to pay their respects and clean the grave. In the entire Fox Immortal Valley, the only one who could enter here was the fox demon. Lu Ye's eyes flickered for a moment. He no longer paid attention to the grave and looked at the altar. Lu Yi could tell at a glance that this altar was something that had been around for a long time. It was very simple and unadorned. Lu Yi walked up to the altar and looked around, only to see that the altar was covered in complicated lines. The entire surface of the altar seemed to be covered in a profound array. Lu Yi stared at it for a moment, but still couldn't figure out what this array was. He more or less had some attainments in the array Dao. No matter how complicated an array formation was, even if he had never come into contact with it, he would still be able to see some things. He couldn't see anything. Either these complicated patterns weren't formations, or the profoundness of the things on them was completely beyond his understanding. Looking carefully for a while, Lu Yi suddenly found that there was a groove in each of the four sides of the altar. Lu Yi was no stranger to this item. Generally speaking, these kinds of grooves needed to be filled with spirit stones, such as the spirit gathering array in many sections. Therefore, if he wanted to figure out what this altar was for, all he needed to do was to place some spirit stones in the groove. Naturally, Lu Yi would not be so rash. If he were to do so, it was highly likely that he would alarm the cultivators within Immortal Fox Valley. When that happened, he would definitely be caught red-handed. He could not help but feel a little disappointed. The fox demon had designated this place as a forbidden area. He had thought that there was some incredible secret hidden here. Who would have thought that there was only a lone grave and an ancient altar? He had no way to determine what the altar was used for. It was a wasted trip. Just as he was about to leave, there was suddenly a strange movement. Lu Ye's expression changed and he immediately cast the concealment and aura concealing spirit inscriptions on himself. He stood on the altar and did not dare to move. A seductive figure suddenly appeared in front of him. It was the fox demon. Lu Yi secretly cursed his bad luck. He had seen that the tombstone was spotless and there was not even a blade of grass on the grave. He knew that people often came here to offer their condolences. Who would have thought that he would bump into it in the middle of the night? Now that he was blocked, if not for the support of the spirit inscriptions, he would definitely have been exposed. Under the moonlight, the fox demon quietly walked to the tombstone and looked down. Her face was slowly shrouded in sadness. A moment later there was a soft sobbing sound. Tears flowed down the corners of her eyes, leaving deep marks on her face. The fox demon threw herself on the tombstone and cried out sorrowfully. Her mouth was mumbling something. Lu Yi only heard the words Master, Xian, and I'm so tired. As for the rest he could not hear clearly. He could not help but feel lucky. The fox demon was in a mournful mood at the moment, and she probably did not expect that someone in the Fox Immortal Valley would disobey her orders and come here in the middle of the night. Otherwise, at such a close distance, even if Lu Yi had cast the concealment and aura concealing spirit inscriptions on himself, it was not impossible for him to be discovered. After crying for a long time, the fox demon raised her hand to wipe the corners of her eyes and carefully wiped the clean tombstone. She took a deep breath and her full chest rose high. The sorrow on her face disappeared and was replaced by endless resentment and resentment. Even her originally gentle tone became extremely eerie. Master, it won't take too long. In another month I will be able to avenge you. This time I will not fail. As if because she was too excited when she said these words, her demon essence surged all over her body. Under the moonlight, A few hairy tails condensed from demon essence suddenly appeared behind her coquettish figure, swaying gracefully. From Lu Ye's point of view, this scene revealed a gloomy beauty. She affectionately and reluctantly stared at the tombstone for a moment. When her mood and demon essence calmed down, she turned and left. She passed through the array that enveloped this place and disappeared. Lu Yi stood quietly on the altar, motionless. It was not until a full hour later that he softly called, "Yi." Yi's figure appeared. "It's safe outside." Lu Yi nodded and immediately walked out. When he came in from the outside, he had to use some means to sneak in, but when he left, there was no obstruction from the array. After a while, he quietly returned to his pavilion. Recalling the scene he had just seen, Lu Yi frowned. Previously, through the name of the immortal Fox Valley, he had speculated that the Lord's true form was a fox demon. Today, after seeing the strange phenomenon caused by the other party's demon essence rampaging, he was even more certain of his original speculation. That was indeed a fox demon, but it was not an ordinary fox demon because the other party did not only have one tail, but a total of 6. Was it the heavenly fox race? And it was a 6-tailed heavenly fox. No wonder it had the strange ability to control people's minds. If the other party was the heavenly fox race, then it made sense. Although the heavenly fox race could not be compared to the 4 sacred beasts, it was also a strange beast with innate mystical powers. According to Lu Ye's knowledge, heavenly foxes at the Cloud River tier generally only had 2 or 3 tails. Thus, even if they had special innate mystical powers, they could not reach the level of controlling people's minds. At most, they could slightly confuse people's minds. As long as one's mind was strong enough, one could quickly escape. A fox demon with 6 tails was an anomaly in the heavenly fox race. Under normal circumstances, a 6-tailed heavenly fox's strength was comparable to the divine ocean tier. Although this trip did not yield any practical gains in the Forbidden Land, they had coincidentally seen the true body of the fox demon, so it could not be considered as a complete loss. However, this kind of gain was not particularly useful in the present situation. Lu Yi suddenly spoke up in the darkness. "That fox demon seems very pitiful." "How is she pitiful?" Lu Yi asked in exasperation. "The pitiful ones are the cultivators who have been trapped here. Their minds have been controlled by her, and they are dead set on following her. Her master is dead." Yi's eyes were red. "She wants to avenge her master." Lu Yi turned to look at her, only to feel that this little girl's emotions were too sensitive. The fox demon's master had been dead for at least a dozen years, so what was she crying for? Yi wrinkled her nose and said, "If you also die one day, Hooper and I will definitely think of a way to avenge you." Lu Yi could not help but laugh. "Hooper and I have formed a life origin technique. If I die, Hooper will also be finished and you will also be finished. What's there to avenge? Everyone will go to the Yellow Springs together, and the journey will not be lonely." Yi's cheeks puffed up. "Anyway, that fox demon is so pitiful." After saying that, she stomped her feet and plunged into Hoopo's body, unwilling to pay any attention to Lu Yi. Lu Yi was speechless. In the darkness, his eyes slowly sank. The fox demon had said that she would be able to avenge her dead master within a month, but the question now was, who was the enemy? Lu Yi originally did not know why the fox demon had gathered so many cultivators, but now it seemed that the situation was very clear. She had always been thinking of ways to avenge her master, but it was impossible to do so with her own strength, so she needed to gather cultivators who had entered the depths of Great Mang Mountains. Moreover, so many years had passed, so the fox demon must have acted more than once. She must have acted before, but unfortunately, all of them failed. The deaths of the cultivators under her command must be related to this matter. Right now, there were more than 80 cultivators in Fox Immortal Valley, and 15 of them were at the 9th order. Besides Lu Yi and Li Baxin, the rest were all at the 6th order and above. If such a force were to be brought out, even if they could not sweep through the Cloud River battlefield, they could at least occupy a part of it and dominate it. However, the fox demon had not acted yet. Either she was not confident, or she was waiting for an opportunity. No matter which, her enemy's strength was not to be underestimated. Looking at the entire Cloud River battlefield, there was only one possibility for her enemy to be so cautious. Lu Yi hurriedly took out the map and checked the label on it. After a short while, his eyes fixed on a line of labels. Overlord Monster Beast, Berserk Giant Ape. Lu Ye's eyelids twitched. If things were as he thought, then it would be troublesome. He did not know how strong a Cloud River Overlord Monster Beast was. However, he had experienced the strength of a Spirit Stream Overlord Monster Beast. It was a strength that completely exceeded the scope of the spirit stream realm. He himself was an overlord existence as a cultivator. It could be said that under the same realm he was invincible. The strength of Fox Immortal Valley was indeed extraordinary, but it was hard to say who would have the last laugh against an overlord monster beast. One month, Lu Yi suddenly felt a headache coming on. Should he try to knock Li Baxin out and directly take him away? However, not to mention whether he had a chance of succeeding. If he failed, he would definitely expose some of his things. At that time, no one would be able to escape. Even if he really knocked Li Baxin out, the soul's secret technique would always be a hidden danger. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.